It is my hope that our recent presidential election will be remembered as the greatest and most consequential election in the history of our country. As our victory showed, the entire nation is rapidly unifying behind our agenda with dramatic increases in support from virtually every element of our society, young and old, men and women, African Americans, Hispanic Americans, Asian Americans, urban, suburban, rural, and very importantly, we had a powerful win in all 7 swing states. And the popular vote, we won by millions of people. To the Black and Hispanic communities, I want to thank you for the tremendous outpouring of love and trust that you have shown me with your vote. We set records, and I will not forget it. I've heard your voices in the campaign, and I look forward to working with you in the years to come. Today is Martin Luther King Day, and his honor, this will be a great honor, but in his honor, we will strive together to make his dream a reality. We will make his dream come true.
We anticipate in the next 10 to 12 years approximately 8 to 6 million Hispanics coming into the United States and 41 million Asians. You have been the majority minority for 400 years in this country. You have been the number 2 population for 400 years. You're gonna get kicked out of being number 2, you're gonna go down and become number 4. Now, common sense, even a 3rd grade education will tell you, if you didn't get anything when you were number 2, you all jumped ahead of me, but anyway, you can guess what you're going to get when you become number 4.
President Biden, do you support reparations?
Look, I mean, since I haven't spoken on this, got a chance. Number one, the reason we're the country we are is because of immigration. We've been able to cherry pick the best from every single continent. The people who come here have determination, resilience. They are ready to stand up and work like the devil. We have 24 out of every 100 children in our school today is Hispanic. The idea that we are going to walk away and not provide every opportunity for them is not only stupid and immoral, but it's bad for America. They are the future of America.
It's a bad same time that America refused to give the Negro any land. Through an act of Congress, our government was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that it was willing to undergird its white peasants from Europe with an economic floor. But not only did they give the land, they built land-grant colleges with government money to teach them how to farm. And this is what we are faced with. And this is the reality. Now, when we come to Washington, in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
We are owed $104 trillion on the very low end, plus $735 billion recurring. This number does not include the cost of about 50 Black Wall Streets that were decimated, nor compound interest from 2017 when Sean D. Rochester's book, The Black Tax, was published, nor the cost of Black life, nor the cost of living increases, nor the war on drugs, nor the current day pandemic. The number I'm working with is for slavery, Jim Crow, and accrued ongoing systemic racism, oppression, and disadvantage in the country our ancestors built with their lives.
Good evening on the West Coast. Good evening in the mountains. Good evening in the central. Good evening on the East Coast. You know exactly who it is. Angela Nirvana, your hostess with the mostest on the reparations perspective, bringing you those Negro descendant hot topic and making the case for reparations, making the case for weaponizing our vote, socializing our suffering. How y'all doing, family? Welcome, 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 one and all, to the live. I see you, Ivy Dreams, early to the class. And for those of you who are tuning in from Facebook, welcome to the live. X, welcome to the live. If you'd like to be active as our co-host in the chat, where I read your comments towards the latter part of the broadcast, feel free to join us over here on ScrewTube. Yes, happy Martin Luther King Jr. Day, family. I had to play you a little bit of Trump. I'm just so ecstatic that what I have voted for is coming into fruition. It just pleased me through and through. Shout out again to the 28% of Negroes, well, Negroes and melanated immigrants, I'm sure, who turned out the vote for Trump. I had to play that snippet where he said he was going to make Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream a reality. Let's hope he does so. You know, I don't put too much stock in these politicians, child. But I do see remnants of things happening at the border where, you know, he's about to deliver on what I voted for. He's already shut down this transgender nonsense. You have to identify as the way God made you. That thrills me through and through. No more of these crazy ass pronouns creating offenses to folks who clearly have junk in their trunk or they got an eggplant. We could just call the thing what a thing is. I mean, this is the kind of nonsense the demon rats had us stuck on, stupid, with their abortions. Hi, Gwen XOXO. I see you, family. With this push from the demon rats to kill more of our babies while illegals birth citizens. Yes, I'm thrilled, super thrilled to see what's happening at the border and to see that they're putting a stop to it. I want to share a little bit with you before I jump into all these slides I have. It's going to be a lengthy broadcast, family. You need to have your libations. Buckle up, buttercups. We in for a long night because I want to deal with these cosplaying folks that are really undermining everything the Negro is due. And then I want to come in with this amazing space starring one of my staunchest comrades, Asun Powell from Capital Accountability Project, where they are really leaning into our delineation. So, family, we are winning. I want y'all to hang in there and hold on because we've got some serious solutions to share in the end of the broadcast. In the end of all these slides, I mean, if I showed y'all every slide that I found on these cosplaying fools that love to weaponize our never-ending Holocaust for their comeuppance to our economic genocide, we'd be here for several lifetimes. That's how bad it is. I literally just had to start shutting down different things. I mean, these are the X-Files. Like everything I'm showing and sharing is, I'm trying to take a different approach so y'all don't get bored with the same soup warmed over. I try to be unique. I'm a creative. So I like to bring you things in a different fashion. I sit with my inner Christ and I say, well, what should my approach be now that I'm back, right? Because there's so much to talk about, but I want you to get the reparationist perspective. So some of it will be like, yeah, we know that. But just in the way that I found certain funny things to expound upon. And of course, I always love to weigh in. Y'all know I was born to talk. So prayerfully, you know, you will glean something different from how I put this together. Because one of the things I have been over for a long time is the cosplay. I am fed up, especially when they try to give these dimwits credit for being me, for being Black women. That is really the rub for me. You know, these tricks that are sleeping their way to the top of Pali tricks, sleeping their way to the top of the sports news anchor. Yeah. Folks that had me out here voting for 2 election cycles thinking, he's black like me. Well, we're going to unpack all of that on the road to delineation. So let's get into it. I'm not going to belabor because I don't want you to lose much sleep. I know it's a work night for you, but I am grateful to you for joining me live. Thank you so very much. Please be sure to like, share, subscribe, turn on your notifications. I am being shadow banned. As all of you know, this is not news. And when you press the like button, they say it pushes me through the algorithm. So more people will be able to tune into as the world of the Negro descendant turns. Okay, so let's jump right into it. Okay, family, this is going to be rich and epic. Let's just start at the top. I'm going to try to do it in some semblance of order. We'll see how that goes because, child, the slides are everywhere. But hold on. Let's do this one.
Before y'all Democrats start trying to play the race card, I want y'all to understand this. Kamala is not black. Her kids is not black. Her husband is not black. She does not come from black culture. So don't tell me I got to support Kamala Harris because she's black. The race pander from the Democratic Party got to stop. It's really that simple. Thank you for listening. Before y'all Democrats start trying to play the race card, I want y'all to understand this. Kamala is not black. Her kids is not black. Her husband is not black.
Going on and on and on. What I love about this video is the fact that our young people were not about to be placed in a trick bag. And it was the young people, truly, that came out in droves for deportation, closed borders. Shout out to the young people all the way from the hood. If I can find that video, I think I shared it once. I don't know. I'm going to share it again. Where these young cats was in this, some type of Latin-owned bodega in Chicago. And he was messing with them and asking, who are you going to vote for? And they looked at him like he was crazy. And in their best Ebonics said, Trump, fool. We're not voting for her. It was hilarious. When I can find it, I will share it. But I want to shout the young people out because they weren't falling for the banana in the tailpipe. And when you see them using their critical thinking skills at this young of an age, unakin to many boomers and silent Jen who went out here and voted blue to our economic genocide, thankfully it did prevail. When you see it unfolding in the youth so young, you realize there's hope. That our kids are not lost like the propaganda suggests, like the propaganda likes to focus on. So that thrilled me through and through. Let's go to the next slide. Hold on, y'all. Let's see here. Okay, hold on, y'all. Oh, Lord, it's out of order. I hate that. I put them all in order, took all that time, and they're still out of order. Lord have mercy. Let me just look up here and try to match it up with what's in the queue. What's this one called? Judge Joe Brown. Okay. Let's go to Judge Joe Brown if I can find him in here. Lord. It's in order on my screen, but not when I try to share. It's all out of order, y'all. And I don't like that because, I wanted to be very succinct with this, and it's not really allowing me to. Oh, there it is. Okay, let's try. Okay, hold on, y'all. Here's Judge Joe. Maybe it is.
Sick and tired of somebody trying to lure us down like we're some kind of damn duck with some sick and tired of somebody trying to lure us down like we're some kind of damn duck with some fake Negroes to lure us in so we can be trapped. We don't want any more damn decoys. We want black people in charge. We want black people getting the game. We don't want show. We want somebody to answer the questions. We don't give a damn what you feel like. We want to know what you're going to do. So when are we going to get that? And when are we going to start insisting that we get that? And when are we going to get over this idea that just because they look like us, they're supposed to help us. And by the way, aside from her being a fake, even if she was real, what is her connection to America? Her parents weren't trying to be immigrants. They were just here temporarily on student visas and work visas. They were passing through. She grew up in Canada. She doesn't have the instincts of what we have here. She can't even talk about it right. Oh, we're going to have to do something about the fact that we didn't get our 20 acres and a mule. Every damn somebody in America, including the white folks, knows it was 40 acres and a damn mule. And she's talking about 20.
So that was Judge Joe Brown putting it down. You know, this is what's been problematic with Kamala, as many of you already know. But yeah, I wanted to memorialize it here. I am over the cosplay. I want delineation now for these very reasons. And to his point, until we get a Negro descendant that is actually in charge of this country, we haven't had a Black American president yet. Okay, so I really, really love the point that he stressed there. Let's go to the next slide. It might be out of order, y'all, because I ain't got time to tarry. We got to get to this big room that I want to share with you on delineation. It's rich, it's epic. You're going to truly love it. Let's get to the next slide. This sister, she kind of sort of quasi got it right. But let her rip and then I'll share my thoughts.
I'm not Black. Let me say that again. I am not Black, okay? Hear me out. Growing up, my mom absolutely hated when we refer to ourselves as Black. She's like, you're not Black, you're Nigerian, you're African. I feel like the term someone is Black obviously comes from the slave era, but it also just describes displaced people that don't know their heritage. So I feel like people that do know their heritage, to try and curb racism in some way, people are going to be racist. Ignorance is ignorance. You can't, but
just I want to break in here because this is where she has a little ignorance. You know, people like to say that we don't know where we come from. We absolutely know where we come from. We know where Africans sold us from. We know that we predate Columbus here. So we know that we are more patriotic and more American than anybody here. The rest of y'all are immigrant to this country. So I had to correct her, but I do like where she's going with it because that is my biggest argument with folks trying to co-opt Blackness. You see, they like to slip in and out of our Blackness for their comeuppance at our economic genocide, okay? That's really what's going on here. They love being us when they can benefit, when they can get free education, when they can get affirmative action and civil rights. That's when Blackness comes into play for these immigrants. But for them to niggardly say that we don't know where we descend from, we have no culture, we don't know, that is an outright and blatant lie. But she's onto something when she's dealing with Blackness as skin tone. And that's what the government and the OMB have conveniently done. They flattened Blackness to ethnocide, then genocide us. That's exactly what happens. Let's just make it about skin tone so no one is the wiser when we totally erase them and their justice claim. That's what's happening with the Black vote, our reparations, our taxes, and our Social Security. Let's continue.
Curb racism in a small way. Stop referring to yourself as Black. You know, if you know where you're from, you're raised in a certain household. You know, Somalians are Somalians, Ethiopians are Ethiopians, Nigerians are Nigerians. Like, if you know where you're from, why refer to yourself as a color? I feel like when we say Black, it just sounds so harsh and like, this is Black. I'm brown. You know, I'm Nigerian at the end of the day. Like, that's who I am. That's where I come from. So I understand when you say Black British or Black American, because you don't know where you're from. You're just a person of color in the city that you're in. Obviously, you still be treated the way you're treated, but just like, I feel like it just, when I hear someone refer to me as Black, it just sounds so harsh, especially coming from a certain demographic. I think if you have the privilege of knowing where you're from, you shouldn't refer to yourself as a color, because it further, pushes the racism narrative and further divides us, to be honest. And I also think it's a mindset thing, because I remember that podcast where there's two, I think they were Somali. They're like, we're Somalians, we're not black. And everyone had a problem with that. Okay, if you're not black, what are you? Like he said, he's Somalian. He's not defined by a color that doesn't even fit the category of his skin. I know this is a very nuanced conversation, and obviously it depends on your mindset. And some people are like, I beg, I'm black. Okay, oh, you're black. For me and for a lot of other people, we don't want to be described by a color, because I feel like it further pushes that the racist narrative and also further divides everybody. We're all human beings. We come from different walks of life. I come from a country where the sun is always out, so of course adaptation, my skin is going to be melanated, and I feel like just knowing who you are adds to a person's character.
Like I said, this is what a lot of them love to do. They love to play both sides. You're Nigerian when it's convenient, and you're Black American when it's convenient. You see, we have no shame in being Americans. That is what Pan-Africanism brought us. They wanted us to be ashamed of being named Black Americans while cloaking themselves in our 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. All of the groups do this. And so this is another problem I have with it. You want to denigrate Blackness in a way that we're proud of it, because that is who we are. Black Americans, yes. And it has nothing to do with not knowing where we're from. We're right from here. This is our home. And this is the home I've been, along with the soil, teaching you how to fight for your Americanness. Not the ugly aspect of America, but the greatness that is us. Okay? That's what you need to be proud of. But like I said, I do like the idea where she's going with it in terms of Blackness as skin tone. That needs to go away. We need to take all of our identifiers back. And it needs to be against the law and anti-Negro descendant to refer to yourself as us. Skamala, Joy Ann Reed. Who else I got up here? Barack Obama. Yeah, that should come with heavy fines. It should be considered as anti-Negro descendant, as the Jews like to play the anti-Semitic card. Hello, Drake, who made a gang of money trying to be hip hop. And now that Kendrick Lamar has come out with a song denigrating you in the same way you dissed him first, now you want to cry anti-Semitic, you see. How convenient. How convenient. But no time to get into that. That's a whole nother broadcast in and unto itself. But I just believe that when people pretend to be us, when they cosplay us for our entitlements, while we suffer the highest rates of homelessness, unemployment, underemployment, evictions, incarceration, children lost and gone, disappeared between sex trafficking and organ harvesting, if you dare cosplay us and you can't show evidence that you descend from this, you should be fined up the wazoo. I'm for that, and it should be anti-Negro. That's what I believe in this country, that our ancestors built with their very lives. Let's move on to the next one. Hold on, y'all. Okay, so this post is from All on One Accord. Kamala Harris is not Black American, descendant of American slavery. She has no policy to help Black Americans specifically. She's married to a white man, and neither of her parents are or identify as Black. Yet idiots support her because she is somehow Black. I know she's laughing her A off at you. Stupid. Okay, I'm not going to call names. But yeah, I want to share with you a video from Club Shay Shay before I give my commentary. Where she kind of quasi admitted to the fact that she's not Black. But let me share with you the trick bag and how these people know exactly what they're doing when they infiltrate our culture, take on our identity to aspire to the highest office in the land. You let me know in the chat if you hear it. Hold on. Please be sure to like, share, subscribe, turn on your notifications. Welcome to the live. Oh Lord, where is that one at? No. Hold on, y'all. Okay. Come on, Club Shay Shay, where you at? Okay, here we go. Let me blow this up.
My mother, she understood that there is a community that she wanted her children to be raised in. Mm-hmm. And she was very intentional and purposeful about that. And so I always say to people, even when I took the stage as the nominee for the Democratic nomination, that, you know, there is the family that you have by birth, and there is also the family you have by love. And they're equally family, yes, right? And I learned that from my mother. So my mother, I had all these aunties and...
Did y'all hear it? Let's play it again.
My mother, she understood that there is a community that she wanted her children to be raised in. Mm-hmm. And she was very intentional and purposeful about that. And so I always say to people, even when I took the stage as the nominee for the Democratic nomination.
Okay, let's start with the fact
you know, there is the family that you have by birth.
Let's start with the fact that her mother knew exactly what she was doing. I hope you got that. Her mother knew exactly where she wanted to plant her to give this connection to Blackness. This was intentional and by design. This is what I'm telling you. These people are groomed from very early. So, with her being raised around Black folks, she decides that it's equal. To be Black American is the same, and what she's trying to sell Shay Shay on, as he nod and agree like a coon. She's trying to sell Shay Shay on the fact that her play aunties and uncles from around the way makes her equivalent to a Black American Negro descendant of the emancipated. Okay? That's what she's trying to do. This is what these demon rats do. So she was groomed into Blackness, and she claims, oh, because I had close proximity. This is no different than when we were growing up. You guys know, well, I don't know about y'all. I could not call any of my mom's friends or my dad's friends by their first name. It was either Mr. or Miss, or it was auntie or uncle. She's trying to act as if because she had that kind of extended relationship with people who are from our lineage, that makes her one of us. Then she lied and said that she was nominated. No, she was not. She was selected. And as all of you now know. But let's finish this so we can move on.
And there's also the family you have by love. And they're equally family, yes, right? And I learned that from my mother. So my mother, I had all these aunties and uncles. My Uncle Sherman, who was one of the first Black men to graduate from Berkeley School of Law.
Not your uncle.
Who, when we were young girls, sat us down and taught us how to play chess. Because Uncle Sherman said, you need to understand how the chessboard works, because that's the way the world works. There are going to be different players with different moves. Mm-hmm. And you need to see the whole board. Mm-hmm. My mother raised us around, like my Auntie Chris, who went to Howard
Not
in the 50s and pledged Alpha Kappa Alpha. And she was one of my incredible role models growing up. And that was one of the big reasons I wanted to go to Howard University and pledge Alpha Kappa Alpha. Those are some of the lessons that I've learned from my mother. And I try to also share with people, right? Which is the beauty of community. And it's the way I am, right? Which is, you know, the children in my life, whether they be my own.
Yeah, you never had any children as you push abortion on us. But these are the cosplays. These are the ones that allow access into the country. Well, her parents were allowed access into this country, and her mama knew right where to take her. But she left here at 5 and went to Canada. Also, she lied in her book
that talks. I think there's truth in the title somewhere. And she started putting up these pictures of super dark-skinned Jamaican women and lying that these were her people. This was her grandmother. I'm sure you've seen Candace Owens unpack this whole thing for you. So I'm not going to do it here. But I am over these kind of folks coming into the country and weaponizing Blackness for their comeuppance to our economic genocide. That's exactly what's happened. Let's move on. I'm going to try to keep it all her segment because I've got a few others to really, really dig into as well that I want to talk about. So let me just find all the ones with her name in it. So Tim Young says, NABJ journalist Kamala has always identified as Black. Kamala with Mindy Kaling, I'm Indian. Watch this.
So I don't know, is she Indian or is she Black?
She has always identified as a Black woman.
I respect either
Black
one.
college.
Okay, so what we're going to cook today is an Indian recipe. Yes. Because you are Indian.
Yes.
So we're both Indian.
Yes.
But actually, we're both South Indian.
Yes. You look like the entire one half of my family.
So I don't know, is she Indian or is she Black?
She has always
But you know
identified
what?
as a Black
I
woman. She went to a
respect
historically
either
Black
one.
college.
Okay, so what we're going to cook today is an Indian recipe.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
you are Indian.
Yes.
So we're both Indian.
Yes.
But actually, we're both South Indian.
Yes. You look like.
So I wanted to show you that because it speaks to how identity and respectability politics must die for Negro descendants to thrive. It absolutely has to. So folks was on Trump's head for saying what he said, but he was absolutely correct. And then let's dig a little bit more into Mindy Kaling and her brother. Okay, let's talk about how he cosplayed us to become a doctor. Hold on. Was failing. Let me just get to it and then we'll talk.
How far would you go to get into college? Because this guy lied about his race. Vijay Chokal Ingam is an Indian American and brother of actress Mindy Kaling. He's also a bit of a scammer. In college, he was known as being kind of a party animal. And when it came time to apply to medical school, he knew his low GPA wasn't going to cut it. So he faked being Black in order to help his chances getting in through programs like affirmative action. He started going by his middle name Jojo, checked Black on the race identity section of his medical school applications, and even changed his appearance to make himself look more Black. After applying to several schools, he was accepted into St. Louis University School of Medicine and was waitlisted for some of the top medical schools in the country. However, he would drop out after only 2 years. He went on to write about this experience in the book Almost Black, the true story of how I got into medical school by pretending to be Black. How far would you
there
go
you
to...
have it. This is what they do. They cosplay us for our benefits. Now he's going to profit even more because he is Mindy Kaling, who is an actress. He's her brother. So let's write a book about how we scam. And then so what happens is when these immigrants cosplay us and absorb whatever set-asides our ancestors fought and died for, then there's nothing but crumbs left. And then we're left holding the bag. We're left with the bills and the debt of trying to get ourselves educated. Many of whom can't even afford to get educated because, we're being squeezed from both ends between our government and the weaponization of our never-ending Holocaust against us to keep us bottom cast. Far too many of our collective cannot even afford to get into college. And they certainly can't use their Black Americanness under the 14th Amendment for any rights that they are rightfully owed, because by the time they get to the table, it's being used on the likes of these immigrants who are cosplaying us. Moving on. Welcome to the live, y'all. I'll get to your comments towards the end of the broadcast. Just a second. So this is another thing that I can't stand about Kamala and Joy Taylor. Let's get into it.
Fine women.
Are you his daughter? No, I'm not.
And fast cars.
So basically, this is Willie Brown.
Kamala Harris.
Oh, hold on. This is that was just a second, y'all.
Decided to give us an early Christmas gift and to speak out on camera yet again with a little Thanksgiving Day inspo, which I really appreciated because, you know, I'd been missing her a little.
Okay. I was showing you, that's not the one I want from Megan, but I wanted to show you guys what Megyn Kelly had to say about it. But basically what these women do, Kamala is known for it out here in California. You saw that little snippet. Willie Brown was, you know, high-ranking official who pretty much was married and got involved with Kamala. As you saw, she's 30 years younger than him, and they were sleeping together while he was married. And he went on to help her pave a way all the way to the top of the food chain with her VP. Okay, because these women are nothing like, you can't name not one Black American woman who looks like me, who speaks like me, that was able to sleep their way to the highest office in the free world. Okay, you can't name me one. And so this is the other thing that enrages me, that they can sleep their way to the top and then sit up here and cloak themselves in blackness. It is an insult of exponential proportion to have these people who don't descend from our line play and cosplay blackness and doing some of the most diabolical things to get ahead. All the Black women I know are like me. We apply ourselves in our studies. We respect ourselves. My circle, I don't know about y'all's circle, but the women I know are hardworking. They're great mothers. This woman never had a child. Okay, the women I know don't wreck homes. They're not sleeping around with married men to get advances. They're about family. They're about the nuclear Black family. And if that doesn't happen, they're being the best single mothers they know how to be. And they're nothing like these women who get to be called Black whenever they're doing this kind of diabolical bottom feeder behavior. And now they get to be us. It enrages me. Okay, let's keep going. It enrages me. Okay, hold on, y'all. What's this one? Okay. So this post, Kamala is not Black. She is Indian, the end. So here she talks about her Indian culture that she's got in common with Mindy Kaling.
Like every other year. My grandparents were phenomenal. We would go back to India like every other year. My grandfather fought for and was a defender of the freedom of India. When I was a young girl, being the eldest grandchild, my grandfather would take me on his morning walk. All of his buddies who also were great leaders, and they would talk about the importance of fighting for democracy and the importance of fighting for civil rights and that people would be treated equally regardless of where they were born or the circumstances of their birth. Get out there and fight for the best of who we are. Those walks along the beach in India really planted something in my mind and created a commitment in me before I even realized it. It has led me to where I am today.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my true distinct pleasure to introduce the first senator of Indian American heritage in the history of U.S. Senate.
please join us and text South Asians to 70785.
Not Black Americans, South Asians. It's just diabolical what these people will do to try to get us sheep walking to the polls to vote for our own genocide. That's exactly what they do. And 92% of Black women fell for this nonsense. 78% of Black men are the registered voters who showed up. It's diabolical that this kind of stuff can prevail to our expense. Let's keep going. Hold on, guys. I'm trying to get it in some semblance of order. There was, I think, at least one more I wanted to show on her. Oh, maybe there's a couple. Hold on. Hold on, guys. My apologies. Okay, let's do this one. I'm sure many of you saw this nonsense.
Number one, she is a Black woman. She's a mixed race woman. When you see her, you see her Blackness, but she is also South Asian. Her mom is South Asian and her dad is Jamaican.
April,
she is a Black
let
woman
me listen.
Yes.
More power to her. And I think it's great. That should be enough. Listen, it is enough that she's a Black woman.
We are not a monolith.
No.
Exactly. But they did the same thing.
No. I think you're not hearing what people are saying. The people who are saying is she Black enough, that's bull. That's BS. But to want a distinction to say, is she African American or is she Black or is she whatever? There is nothing wrong with that. There is a difference between being African American and being Black. Latino people are people of color, but they're not Black. They're brown people.
She is a woman of color, but she is a Black woman.
Okay, that's why I agree with that. I agree with that. But is she African American? No. But is she African American? There is a difference. There's nothing wrong with that. No one is trying to take anything away from her.
Let's go down into her lineage.
I think you're falling into the trap of that. All she had to do was say, "I am Black, but I'm not African American." That's it.
But she's not Black. But she's not Black. And this is the whole fight for delineation, family. They like to sit up here and trick you and put the cape on and crash and burn for people that are not us because they need us to drink that stupid cyanide. And thankfully, we're waking up and we're not going for the tricks anymore. Let's go to the next slide.
I'm reluctant to lean into, to talk about the historic nature of your candidacy on the campaign trail. Why is that?
Well, I'm clearly a woman. I don't need to point that out to anyone.
You think you just fell out of a coconut tree?
You exist in the context
Of all in which you lived and what came before you.
Like, don't hear that. Don't hear that. I eat no for breakfast. That's my saying. I eat no for breakfast. So I may not be quick to have the answer as soon as you ask it about a specific policy issue sometimes, because I'm going to want to research it. I'm going to want to study it. I'm kind of a nerd sometimes, I confess.
So when we think about what's at stake in this election, whoa, it's packed with some stuff.
And as a woman, there's a balance to be struck between being tough and being a bitch.
Turn that off. That's another thing. I don't know any Black women. I don't know any Black women that are this much of a dingbat, that laughs and cackles like a hyena. She thinks this stuff is cute. It is very insulting. It's an insult of exponential proportion to have her be labeled me. It is insulting beyond. And I tell you, I had to shut down so many slides because I could only take enough just in repeating it here on this broadcast. But that's another thing that really grates on my last nerve, that they can get these women that sleep their way to the top, to the highest office in the land, and be dumb as a bag of rocks. It's insulting to me. When I've got education, I've had to apply myself every step of the way. I've got work across industries, and she gets to be the representation of me. No, that is what this video is about today, is correcting the record and coming up with a solution to lean in on delineation. It's coming up soon. Just stand by. Let me go to the next slide. My God, it's almost 6 o'clock and we're not even done dissecting her. Oh, Lord, is this going to be another 50-part series? Hold on, y'all. I might have to make it a bigger series because I'm not going to get through all these slides. I have to start sharing that video in about 15 minutes. So let me get through what I can. Hopefully I can finish her out and get on to, I think I'm going to go to Karen Bass next, since that's the hottest topic. Let me see. Did I do everything concerning her? I'm just fishing through my slides. Okay, so let's, well, if we come across any more for her, I guess I'll get into it. Okay, I do want to touch briefly on this trick here. Okay, so this is Joy Taylor. I don't know if any of you know this story, but Chaotic Truth Live says, if you think Joy Taylor is Black, you're an idiot, disrespectfully. I want to share what Harriet said about it before I weigh in. This is another woman that, now that she has slept her way up to the top of Fox Sports, is being labeled Black. This is a biracial woman. They need to get this nonsense right, because this is another offense to me as a Black American Negro descendant of the emancipated. That these tricks who sleep their way to the top get to be called me. Okay, so let's go into the slide that I want to go to Harriet's comments. They're a little brash, but they need to be said. Stand by. Harriet Eve, shout out to you. Joy Taylor is a whole hoe out here. A disgraceful 304, pretending to earn her way through hard work and merit, but actually gained her position at the top in sports media on her back and on her knees. Joy is a disgrace to every Black woman in America who has earned her place in corporate leadership through blood, sweat, tears, and sacrifice. I have been patiently waiting on all the delusional Black feminists from the Democratic Party, those are my words, who blame Black men for all their problems while failing to accept accountability for their lack of moral integrity, their toxic character flaws, their degeneracy, their unchecked 304 status and behavior, and their blatant stupidity. Run through middle-aged old 304s talking about now they're ready to settle down. You delusional frauds were running y'all's mouths nonstop in social media with the Diddy allegations. But now y'all on mute and need proof that a mediocre Joy Taylor is a promiscuous 304 who slept her way to the top of the sports media. And what do Black women get? Her being called us. That's another thing that grates on my last nerve. She had the unmitigated gall. Hold on one second, family. I want to silence my phone. She had the unmitigated gall. And let me see if I can find, hold on one second. I'm sorry, a little distracted here. I got to find the slide. And let me just find it. Okay. So this is another thing that grates on my nerves when it comes to these biracials and immigrants and first and second gens cosplaying us, especially when they're caught up into some diabolical nature, when they're operating in their lower nature. It denigrates Black women who, like Harriet said, have worked tirelessly to get to the top in whatever industry they're in. This is what we get to be lumped into. And I guess if it doesn't apply, I should let it fly, but it's still on my last nerve, and I want to talk about it. So here it is. This is the slide I wanted. Nah, dog, Joy Taylor is wildin', says Big Chuck. Okay, well, I didn't mean to show that part. She was blanking two ninjas on the job at the same time and tried blackmailing Buddy into a job. She's insane. So I know the Skip Bayless allegations is wild, but the Joy Taylor allegation is crazy too. So for those of you who don't know, let me read this excerpt from the lawsuit. Miss Taylor again uses her sexuality to get on a show. In approximately February 2020, Miss Taylor asked Miss Faraji. Now, for those of you who don't know this story, Miss Faraji was a hairstylist on Fox Sports, and she has brought a lawsuit against Skip Bayless for trying to pay her to sleep with her. And in the process, she's exposed Joy Taylor and what Joy shared with her. It's going to make your hair stand on its ends, especially the fact that they want to keep calling her me, okay? I mean me in terms of being a Black American Negro descendant of the emancipated. And she's a whole biracial out here screwing her way to the top. Anyway, let me continue. Okay, in approximately February 2020, Miss Taylor asked Miss Faraji to meet her for lunch in Beverly Hills. When Miss Faraji arrived, she found Miss Taylor with a man, Emmanuel Acho, another immigrant. Mr. Acho is what he'll be later referred to as. Miss Faraji did not know Mr. Acho, but could tell that the two were romantically involved. A few months after meeting Mr. Acho at the lunch, Miss Faraji noticed him in the hallway while at work. Miss Faraji later asked Miss Taylor if Mr. Acho also worked at Fox. Miss Taylor confirmed and explained that she wanted Mr. Acho to eventually recommend her on the show, Speak for Yourself, me speaking. Now, Acho actually did that. He did a commercial giving her big praises until this lawsuit came out. And don't you notice, ironically, nothing about this lawsuit is being spoken about in the mainstream media? I'm not excusing Diddy of a thing. If he did the crimes, he should do the time. But what I'm trying to make a comparison to here, an analogy, is the way they speak on Diddy every day. I don't know about in the mainstream media, but it's all over ScrewTube, okay? But when it comes to this, and Joy Taylor, the biracial pretending to be me, you don't hear them talking about this suit. They ain't said nothing but maybe once at the very beginning, and now it's gone away. Why? Because they're trying to preserve their Super Bowl. So between Drake calling Kendrick Lamar anti-Semitic for calling him a colonizer, he's trying to pay him to be anti-Semitic. Now, Ain't Like Us is on the line to be chopped from the Super Bowl. And this Miss Faraji suing Fox Sports for sexual harassment. They're trying to protect the institution of the NFL. So they're going to leave this alone. But let it be any of ours or people that look like me, because Jay-Z ain't us. He's an immigrant. Okay? I don't know about Sean Combs. I can't find a lot of what I'm looking for when I'm trying to prove to y'all these people ain't us. Damn are not like us. They ain't us. So Acho had put up praising her because, of course, they were sleeping together, and she ultimately got and secured her role on her back on Speak for Yourself. But since the ish hit the fan, Acho has taken the video down. Let me continue. Miss Faraji became alarmed and warned Miss Taylor that she should probably not sleep with Mr. Dixon and Mr. Acho at the same time, because Mr. Dixon is a very powerful man that may become very angry. Now, Miss Taylor told Miss Faraji not to worry about it. She explained that she was also now powerful. Why was she powerful? Because she was sleeping with the head of Fox Sports, Mr. Dixon, and Acho. So she explained she was now also powerful, and once Mr. Dixon was no longer useful to her, she would follow through on her plan to tell the company that he forced himself on her. She would not allow herself to be forced out by Mr. Dixon like other women talent. But they want to claim this thought, this 304 is me. Not me personally, but me as in a Black American Negro freedman woman. This is what I'm talking about. It grates on my last nerve to have these diabolical bottom feeders compared to me, when I know in the history of this country, no one that looks like me or talks like me has ever slept their way to the top. We've had to scrap our way to the top and cross fingers and toes that we weren't the first to be fired. The last hired, the first to be fired. In approximately September 22, Miss Taylor started to work on Speak. Miss Taylor requested Miss Faraji to do her hair. Okay, that's enough of that. Okay. Let's see here. Oh, Lord, we're almost at 6 o'clock. Oof. Okay. Let me see. Maybe I could do one more. Maybe. I don't want to rush it. Hold on, y'all. Oh, yet again, I've got a ton of slides. So let me do this in another part. I'm going to come back. I don't want to rush. Well, maybe I can do Angela Rye. She's a little short. Hold on. Let's see if we can get her in. So Angela Rye was the director of the Congressional Black Caucuses. I'm not sure if you guys are aware of this. Another biracial who likes to cosplay us while not doing a hot damn thing for us. So let's get into her little story here. Hold on. Let me share a couple of slides. We'll do her. And then when we come back, I'll do Barack. I'll do Karen Bass. I want to slow walk her. And then Joyanne Reed on the next one, okay? Let me see here, because we got to get into, I don't want it to get too late and you guys get too sleepy to hear the solution. Stand by. Yeah, Angela Rye is another one. So, Joyanne Reed and Angela Rye and Don Lemonhead were a few of the people that were actually calling us, the co-founders of the former ADOS movement, Russian bots. So here we've got the resistance sharing. Here is Angela Rye calling Black Americans Russian bots because her paymasters told her to. She has zero proof of her claims, but it sounded good at the time. When Jill Stein said that she was parroting back white supremacist talking points, it took the wind out of her sails, thus her pouting and cutting off at Dr. Jill Stein on At the Breakfast Club. So here she is. Let's listen to this bullshiggity.
It's dangerous. I believe that it was paid for by Russia. We just clearly don't pay attention. That's fine. But the challenge I have now is if you follow the narrative, it is very much about We can only talk about reparations and issues specific to Black Americans who are not immigrants, because when other people come here, they're not looking out for our best interests. Number one, that's an overgeneralization. Number two, it's dangerous. I believe that it was paid for by Russia. And I'm not saying not that everyone who uses that hashtag now is a Russian bot, but I believe it originated from Russian bots in the same way that the some of the stuff around the crime bill happened in 2016. There were some lower speeches, clearly don't pay attention.
So this is the way these biracials get in position to head up, the congressional Black caucuses, and they get into these spaces, and then they get awarded microphones to undermine everything the soil has been fighting for. Just call us Russian bots. This is what I mean by these kind of things need to be anti-Negro, racist sentiments that should come with heavy fines. We should break all of their banks. We should break all of their freaking banks for their lies and the things that they're spewing just on repeat, no research, no calling up the organization, no talking to any spokesperson from the organization. Let's just label them and make sure they got nothing coming. So let's finish her out, and then I'm going to move on to the video. Please be sure to like, share, subscribe, turn on your notifications. Thank you in advance. Tariq Nasheed goes on to say, what in the hell is Angela Rye talking about? Foundational Black Americans are not immigrants in the U.S. Her family immigrated from the Caribbean. We have to watch people who are putting out these false narratives about hashtag ADOS. Well, that's big of him because, honey, FBA and ADOS have been at war. So, this is a good thing. Maybe they kissed and made up. That would be good.
Black folks.
Hold on, y'all.
Wedge issue for Black and brown communities. And I'm struggling to understand why Black folks don't understand that we are immigrants too, right? There's been a big myth that this is just a brown issue, and it's not. It's Black and brown. Wedge issue for Black and brown communities. And I'm struggling to understand why Black folks don't understand that we are immigrants too, right? There's been a big myth that this is just a brown issue, and it's not. It's Black and brown.
You see why we have to delineate. I think I got one more to share of her, and then we can go to the video that I'm excited to share with you. Just a second, family. I had to find it. So Sabby Sab says, for all the rhetoric Angela Rye had about Kamala being a Black woman, when a Black agenda was put in front of her that was at the Breakfast Club, she gave establishment talking points against it. The Black Boule maintains the status quo. They've prevented real progress by being gatekeepers. So I do believe I can end with her there. Let me bring up the video that talks about the solutions. It talks about the importance of putting a band around the Negro descendant, the free and the freed, in order to cordon off all these trillions that they've been giving these other groups who have figured it out. We've been sitting up here fighting for reparations that we don't know when it's coming, while Unity for Our Community has figured it out. So let's get that going, and get your pens and pads out, because you're about to go to class for real now. I'm going to fast forward.
I don't know. Mine is just saying speaker something. So I don't know. But yeah, while we wait for others to come back in, yeah, I have some quite interesting facts when it comes to the freed Blacks. and I'm just going to say freed Negroes because that's what they were called back then. But I think people will find interesting that, like in Virginia, they had 58,042 freed Negroes prior to 1863. And I specifically went and looked for prior to 1863 because the Civil War began in 1863. And so I wanted to make sure that we looked at data prior to it so that people could understand the impact of these freed people. In Maryland, we had 83,942 freed Black or freed Negro people. Total, we had close to 500,000 freed people of freed Negroes, if you will, of our group. And that is why it's so important that we make sure that we wrap them into this justice claim. Most of this data that I'm sharing can be found on the census website. You can go directly.
What, son, just like Jake said, I had the same experience when I started doing my genealogy this time around, once I was part of this movement. And I was not finding any slaves. I was like, oh, shit, what's going on here? And like Jake said, I think he said only one of his lines and someone else said only two of their lines they were able to trace to slavery. Everybody else was free. And I dare say on my mother's side, they were remnants that were enslaved at some point, but definitely not part of the chattel enslavement.
Right. And that's why it's important that we understand those things, because we're not trying to be all inclusive relative to melanated people being all inclusive in our lineage and our ethnicity here for the United States. But what we don't want to do is intentionally cut out a large should be a part of this because, again, our Constitution requires that the United States removes the badges and vestiges of slavery. These people were subject to that. They are us. And so the United States has a compelling interest to remove those harms. Now, as we discussed before, and I discussed it with Dawn and I discussed it with the founder, that when we look at enslavement relative to the United States, the United States was established in 1776, which was the Revolutionary War. From 1776 to 1865, when the 13th Amendment was written for all enslaved people to be free, was approximately 100 years. Okay? 100 years of slavery on this soil. Anything prior to that 100 years would be a different conversation, because it wouldn't be just the United States of America that we would be discussing. But then you look at from 1865 until around 1960, when the Jim Crow laws essentially ended. And you look at all in between that, that's another 100 years that those freed Negroes were subjugated to as well, just like the enslaved. And so our putting forth the 3020 code for the ACS is not about just slavery. It's about making sure that every one of us who were harmed during that time, that is of this lineage, that can trace their people back to, at minimum, the 1870 census, is wrapped into it. Who are a part of us is wrapped into that band number. That band number, essentially, that 3020 code and that 3025 code allows us to create a victim group of the multiple harms suffered as one group with different statuses within it. If we're not going to ask for a specific code for Black American Negro veterans and Black American Negro convicts, then we shouldn't be asking for a code for Black American Negro freedmen. That is a sect of the larger group of us. It's not the full group. The full group are Black American Negro descendants. And then all of us can fall into a different status within the body of that. But for me, I'll use myself as an example. Because of my title status, my work status, I could be in a different group within the band, but I am still a part of the band, like it or not. And so anyone that tells me anything differently, because I am not able to trace my lineage, which is different than my ethnicity, but my lineage, my family lineage back to slavery, does not have the right to tell me I am not a part of this group. Once we were emancipated, we were all subject to the same harms.
That's a key
different claims, same harm. Okay, and that's all that we're trying to stress here. So I want to make sure that people understand.
You know what they running with? They're running with now that by from the time of 1865 to now, everybody mixed in, so everybody is freedmen.
They are welcome to run with whatever they want to run with. I personally am not here to go back and forth with people. Here's what I'm here to do. I'm here to state the facts.
I mean, is that a true statement?
Well, Jake, look at your own family. You said you were looking and you saw all of these lines that were not enslaved, and then boom, they mixed with. Same thing on my family, my mother's side, but the Alston side were from the plantations. So you had all these free people all the way up to X point. So in a sense, that's correct. But what the son is saying about going for Black American Negro veterans and freedmen is not the correct thing to do.
But also, I would argue that that's correct. That is not correct. And I would argue that because each person would have to do an individual person's lineage tracing to make that a true statement. And so I'm not here to put a jacket or a blanket on anyone. What I'm here to say is this. The ACS, the survey, the census, the ACS survey hands out trillions of dollars. And this band community, we are the ones that are constantly outside of that $1 trillion allocation when it comes out. We get the pennies, and we get the pennies because we don't figure out the code. And in this instance, the code is recognizing that rather you are of a freedman status, of a veteran status, of a ex-convict status, of an upper echelon of the 1%ers or the educated college status, if your people are traceable to the 1870 census minimum, then you are of the band. And what we're trying to do is put a band around that group, and then within that group, because the government is sourcing this data, the government is housing this data that they are collecting on us. One, there'll never be an argument again about, well, we don't know who those descendants are because now we've put that gate up. Secondly, we will be able to say, as each one of us in our respective states, as well as the federal, as we begin to move forward to whatever office that will be created on our behalf, we will have a pool of people sitting there now. And that is when they decide we're going to give repair for slavery, that is when people will have to produce their paperwork. But at least they will know that here's the pool that we're looking at. In the interim, what this allows us to do is begin to prepare ourselves to receive direct resources in our community as a collective group, as common needs, just like immigrants have collective common needs. Even if they are Africans versus Hispanic and Latinos, they still have some type of common need when it comes to being an immigrant, rather it's seeking citizenship, rather it's seeking English as a second language. It's a common need. Well, the band group has many common needs. Now, my need might be different than someone who is a veteran that is suffering from post-traumatic stress syndrome, but they have a status of a veteran. That does not negate the fact that that veteran still has a common need that I have, which is the deprivation of resources overall into my community to repair it. And so that is what we are working to do. We're not here to discuss the criteria of reparations. We're not here to discuss who is a freedman, who is a Negro, and which one is the best way to go. A freedman status shouldn't even have a conversation in this place because you're talking about a status. And if we're not going to talk about other people's status, as we've already discussed, we're not going to talk about the disabled man, then why are we discussing the freedman ban? What we're saying is, this is our opportunity with a new administration to really bang out some of the things that we have been talking about for 5 to 6 years or longer for some of us. This is an opportunity for our community to understand this. Rather, they formally give us the 30/20 code for ban or not. You and I have the power to make it happen regardless. Okay, by simply writing 30/20 banned. Because
let me unpack this a little bit for you all. Basically, what Asan is talking about is how this ACS survey is tied to the census. And no matter how many ethnicities fall under Asian, fall under Hispanic, fall under Caribbeans or sub-Saharan Africans, the reason why they're eating well off of our reparations is because when we went to the OMB, we were very splintered on how we wanted to be recognized. And they weaponized that against us to acquiesce the legacy organizations in order to deny us delineation. There were people there fighting for ADOS, people there fighting for FBA, people there fighting for the Black American Negro Freedmen. So many different people were coming once they found out about the OMB. They were coming, and then they were making the case for why they wanted to identify the way they wanted to. Well, Black American Negro Freedmen, which was created by the very people you see on, well, you probably don't see them. Carolyn says she can't see the bubbles with the people's names under them. But the people in this space, Unity for Our Community, came up with Black American Negro Freedmen as the umbrella. Black American was the umbrella. If you want to identify as FBA or ADOS or Negro or Freedman, you were free to do that under the umbrella of Black America, African American, anything you wanted to identify as, they were putting under Black American. But as they evolved in their research and speaking with attorneys, once we were denied and the legacy organization was considered over 20,000 of us, that it showed up over 18 months to fight for delineation for the very reasons I just outlined above, namely our economic genocide under flat Blackness. When they prevailed, Unity for Our Community went back to the drawing board and started talking to judges and lawyers and all these different scholars about us. And what I hear that they did was they modeled the way they want us to identify after what the California Reparations Task Force did. I don't know if you guys can recall, but the California Task Force in the end said, while this is lineage based, they're going to deal with every Black person that was here prior to I want to say prior to the 1870 census that Asan mentions. And that consisted of both free Negroes and freed men. So that's what she was discussing at the top of the broadcast, the space. She's talking about how many free Black people, Negro people were in this country prior to us getting our emancipation. And so she's speaking to how we need to come together under this ACS survey, of which I'm going to be sharing the links with you guys on how to do that But we need to come under the identifier as Black American Negro descendants, BAND, B-A-N-D, because freedmen and free men both existed and both suffered the harms. You guys know how I always tell you that the reparations I'm fighting for is for slavery, Jim Crow, and accrued ongoing systemic racism, oppression, and disadvantage in the country our ancestors built with their lives. Well, this is a major step in making sure those of us who fall under those confines get whatever reparations is coming. We've got to make sure we put the gate up on these cosplaying melanated immigrants who have eaten off of us for way too long. These Pan-Africanists have been getting in the way of our reparations movements throughout the nation. They want flat blackness to prevail because they believe that they're entitled, after migrating here, they're entitled to reparations because of the racism they've endured. But this is what you signed up for when you chose to migrate to this country. Our response to all of what I just shared, and we'll share with you in a part 2, I'm going to let them do the speaking, and then I'll come back tomorrow with the rest of my slides so we can finish out this series and the second half of this chat back, because it's like about 2 hours long. So I'm going to do about an hour now, and then the other hour tomorrow after I do an hour of slides. But basically, coming up with a way to override the legacy organizations and to override the OMB who denied us delineation because they claimed that we were confused when we're not. We just need a way to corral all of the Negroes who were here prior to the 1870 census that she's referring to, put us under one band, fill in this survey. And as long as we can get 2 million of us to do that, then we force the hand of our own delineation, because the census allows us to identify how we please. And I don't know if you recall, the last census, we wrote down that we were American descendants of slavery. Okay, well, this census, we're working with this ACS survey that's giving away trillions to all the immigrant groups and white folks, leaving us out because we've not gated up in the way that they had around their issues. Even LGBTQ has a seat at these trillions of dollars. So because we have yet to gate up under band, where you are not going to lose your capacity to identify as FBA, nor ADOS. But freedmen would be under there too. If you want to identify as freedmen, it would be under the band. The band coalesces us as free Negroes and freedmen. Those of us who were enslaved and those of us that were free. So we're not getting into the weeds of who's going to get how much. In my mind, it would be reasonable that if you descend from slavery, that you would get a bigger share of whatever monies that are going to come from the reparations once that's decided upon. Because if you were free, you definitely didn't suffer under the atrocities that we did, but you can be included. And listen, we're not here to put a number on nothing. We're here to band together so that we can get the low-hanging fruit, these trillions that they're giving to all these other groups while we are on the bottom of this Titanic. This is a way to get up off that bottom and let reparations take care of itself. But first thing is first, delineation. Let's continue.
If we can have
that's how they got Blexicans.
Exactly. And that's how they got Pan-Africans and etc. So they can do that. Imagine what the 50 million of us can do if we stop getting sidetracked or distracted on things that are not even necessary in this conversation, and we just stay focused on this one goal. Can we walk away saying we met the goal this time? And the goal simply is to put a band around a specific group of people who have a specific lineage to this soil here. Rather it is a freedman status, rather it's a free status, rather it's a veteran status, a Negro status. We're talking about the people who were here on the census at minimum 1870 that are of this lineage. The freed blacks, the freed Negroes, the mulattoes, the colored people, the freed men. That's who we're talking about. We're talking about our colored troops who were of this lineage, but their status was colored troop. It does not exempt them from being a part of the band. They're a part of the band, and their status is those are the colored troops, and therefore they maybe do something else more than what the rest of us are doing, because we were not a part of the descendants of the colored troop people. And I don't know.
I want to bring it to the Jumbotron, the application of it here in a resource and allocation of resources. If you look at the Jumbotron, this is Maryland's MWBE program, and shows that white women got 60 million more than black women. You could do the comparisons versus families versus the all African American category. But I thought the gap between black and white women was particularly alarming. I think Maryland has a huge history of white women owning slaves and also breeding farms. And that's what this always makes me think about when I look at these MWB programs and see that white women are getting, white families, are getting all of this money. So being able to advocate for ourselves under ban to go in and say, because this African American category, we don't quote unquote necessarily know who's in that category, but we do know that we're not getting our fair share. So it would be a way to ignite that advocacy and actually go after these programs to get contracts.
Right, and as we look at it, if you could delve in a little bit deeper with the 2020 census, what you'll see is they have on there African American alone, African American.
Do they?
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. And so the data at the local levels are being disaggregated. You can go straight to the Census Bureau and see that. One of the things I did want to point out was, again, that when we're looking at the ACS coding, this is what we're talking about today, just the ACS coding. We're not talking about reparations, etc. You look at the ACS coding, and if we get this band code put in, it allows us to finally hold the government to no longer being able to say they don't know who we are. It truly allows us to have access to the resources that are being redirected to quote unquote African Americans, Black people, which is a flattening right now, right? Just like how the what is that group called? Well, we'll just use LGBTQ plus for right now. Just like they were able to put in a plug for their community. Now that community is mixed with all different types of, or all different ethnic classes, and yet they were able to, and let me just add, all income levels as well. But they were able to successfully secure funding for their initiatives and resources for their initiatives to get what they have been able to achieve. And
let me answer Satra Delry 360. She says, so on the ACS, what do we put? We put 30-20 band. BAND stands for Black American Negro Descendants. On the ACS survey, that is what we put. There's another one that we select as well. 30-25 American Negro. Okay, so those are the two that we're going to select on the ACS survey. I'm going to type it in the chat. I'm looking at y'all's questions and comments as we listen to the room. This is an X space that we're listening to if you're just now joining us. Just, use your imagination and treat it like it's a podcast, because you clearly can't see the names of the people that are in this X space talking. But it's very important what they're discussing. It's about us banding together, the free Negroes and the freed Negroes, banding together under Black American Negro descendants, because not everybody was a freedman. Not everybody descends from chattel slavery in this country. As I often teach you, we were here before Columbus, and then many of us came over during the transatlantic slave trade, but not everybody came over here. So what Unity for Our Community has done is come up with a solution. The solution is not to fight this as Black American Negro freed men, because you're clearly not a freed man if you were free and did not have to suffer heinous chattel slavery. But you, as a free man in this country, has had to deal with the vestiges of chattel slavery. So band is Black American Negro descendants, because Negro is what we were all classified once we were emancipated. Okay. So they have decided that on this ACS survey, if we can get 2 million of us to actually mark 30/20 band for Black American Negro descendants, and that we can also put 30/25 American Negro, now we've covered our bases. And once we band together, now they can no longer deny us the trillions of dollars in our reparations that they're giving away to all these other immigrant groups. So I'll let this continue, and I'll respond to you guys in the chat. If I see something in the chat that I have to bring to the awareness of the viewers who also may have questions, I'll pause, okay?
And that's because they recognize that they might not like one another. They might not share everything in common. But what they did recognize was the largest thing that they shared in common was creating a community where they could use that community to get resources specifically for them. And that is what we're trying to do here. We are creating a victim group and a community that we can identify, so that when we look at the disparity studies that Dawn just referenced, we will be able to disaggregate that data and be able to say this community specifically has been harmed in this way. It's not tied to a race. It's not tied to us talking about just slavery. This part of it is simply tied to resources and identifying where is that pocket in that community. And that's the uniqueness of what we're trying to do. Nothing more, nothing less. We're not here to create the criteria for reparations.
Okay, I see Funny Face says, I know a lady that has colored as her race on her birthday certificate. I have Negro as my race. I have Negro as my race, and we'll delve into how Barack Obama and Grace Ming got rid of the Negro identifier on tomorrow's broadcast. Sorry, can we replay the X space after this broadcast? We cannot hear it clearly. Oh no. Is that true for everyone? Is everyone having a hard time hearing it? Please put it in the chat if you're having a hard time hearing it. I think my volume is up as loud as it will go. And if you're having a hard time hearing, that's no good, because this is about 2 hours. I was going to split it up between today's broadcast and tomorrow. Let me try something else. Let me put it on my Bluetooth. I can hear very clearly.
Okay, so Ivy, is it your sound? Because I really need you, Satra, because I really need y'all to hear this. It's very important. This is the solution. Ivy can hear. Okay, so Satra, you might want to try a different device because this is the tail end. Hi, Mama Debs. Thank you. Yeah, this is the latter part. I'm not doing but another 45 minutes of this discussion. I'm saving the chat back with the other audience members who participated with their questions and answers on tomorrow when I'm going to finish up this series. Hi, St. Thomas. Perhaps they need to sign off and sign back in. Satra, I really hope you can hear. Hi, Queen Yasmin. Thank you guys for being here. So I'm going to continue because it's getting late on the East Coast. And I'll only, as long as y'all can hear. If y'all cannot hear, let me know. I'll take it off of here. It's loud, but it's not clear. A little muffled on my end. Sorry. Okay, is it muffled for you guys? Because what I could do is put it on my phone and play it to my Bluetooth speaker. Let me know if it's clear to the majority. And if not, I'll change it to my phone and put it on my Bluetooth speaker in the house. Because you need to hear this. And you need to glean from it how we're going to get what we are long overdue sooner than later. Some folks are still focused on reparations, and I'm not mad at them for that. Let them work on that, but we need immediate solutions, and it starts with delineation, okay? It's loud. Okay, well, I don't know how to fix it, but if it's not clear to anyone else, let me know. Satra said it's loud, but it's muffled. So let me know, guys, and I'll mute my background noise. On all of my devices, I can hear you very clearly. Okay, thank you, Funny Face. All right, let me continue. Negroes on my birth certificate. We'll discuss tomorrow how Grace Ming and Barack Obama got rid of the Negro identifier, which is on 22 million of our birth certs. But there was a master plan behind it to use the money that was earmarked for us to open the Office of New Americas. But we will get more into that on tomorrow's broadcast when we finish this series, okay? I can hear Dawn better than Asan. Oh, wow. And I can hear Asan better than Dawn. Okay. Let me keep going. Let me see if I can put the closed captions on. Let me see.
OMB defines what Black is, not the ACS.
You can't even see.
So we're not here trying to redefine Blackness when it comes to the census and the ACS. What we are doing, though, is ensuring that under the title Black, when it comes to the ACS, that only van appears there, which will be us. And then by doing that,
Dawn, real quick, son. Hey, Dawn, send me the co-host so I could tweet the title a little bit and get the people in there.
It says co-host. All right, let me.
Mine says speaker. But in doing that, once we do that, I don't think. Let me just give you a real live example. I don't think we understand that we really do have access to the resources. Once that happens, we literally are able to go and sit at these tables where we control the resources and where they go to our communities. We literally will have the ability to create our own service providers. That's each and every one of us. If we get this done. And we don't need, again, I cannot stress it more. We do not need the ACS and the census to approve us. Are we going to play nice in the sand and do it their way up front? Sure, because it would be nice for us to have an official box like the Pan-Africans, et cetera, have. But that does not mean that we're going to wait on that. What that means is we understand we are allowed to self-identify. The problem is, are we as a community going to recognize ourselves as a true community and make people see us as such? And if we say yes, then the time is now for us to say code 3020 ban. Black American Negro descendants. That is who we are. That is who all of us are. We're not asking you for your personal status of being employed or unemployed. We're not asking you if you're disabled.
Or...
Exactly. We're not asking you for any of that. We're just asking you to recognize your community of where you belong.
And let me point out, Jake loves to talk about paperwork. Jake, if you look in the slides there, we were careful to really emphasize that with the words, because words are important. But it says individuals classified by the U.S. Census as Black, Negro, and mulatto. So I think that phrase is important. So it doesn't matter how you got there, and everyone likes to talk about, what reservation or whatever. We're saying the criteria is that you were classified by the government as these three things, and you trace your lineage back to a person who was classified as one of those things prior to 1870. So that's the beauty of it. The United States did it. It's what the United States classified us as before we had the ability to self-identify. And like you said, that is the harm.
And moreover, right? Not only that we was classified as Black or Negro, but not all of us was classified as freemen. I mean, every Black person in America was classified as Black or Negro, but every Black American or Negro wasn't classified as freeman, and that's what need to be understood.
Yeah.
And let me just
and I want to make one last point. That I would rather go into the MWB office in Maryland, and I would change those titles everywhere it says African American. I would say banned. I would use those statistics and point out that glaring disparity and then demand relief.
So going back to, and I fully agree with that, Dawn, and going back to what Jake was saying about all of us are Black American Negro descendants, but not all of us are freedmen, right? And so what I want to share with you all are some of the statistics that I pulled up. The District of Columbia, prior to 1863, had 11,131 free Negroes. The state of Virginia had 58,042 free Negroes. The state of North Carolina had 30,463 freed Negroes. This is all prior to the Civil War. Okay. The state of Maryland had 83,942. Now, let's not get this game twisted, because we know that the North was supposed to be more lenient and have, they were supposed to not have all these slaves. But in Delaware, they had 21,627 free Negroes. Pennsylvania had 56,949 free Negroes. The state of Ohio had 36,673 free Negro. New Jersey had 25,318 free Negroes. New York had 49,005 freed Negro. Now, this data is not a secret. You can go to the census, census.gov, and you can pull it. You can go to, what is that called? Status, STATISTA. You can go there and you can pull the population of the U.S. in 1860 by race and by gender. You can do the same thing with the census, and you can also go to the National Archives, the 1860 census records, and you will also be able to pull it there. We're not making this stuff up. At the end of the day, we had close to 500,000 or more freed Negroes prior to the Civil War. Those freed Negroes during the time of enslavement did not mix with the enslaved, because they did not want to be subject to becoming a slave themselves. But after the 13th Amendment took place, those freed Negroes were all mixed in with the freed Negroes from the Emancipation Proclamation and from the 13th Amendment. So at that point, all of us became one collective group, where rather you mixed in with us or not, no one asked you for your papers anymore about you being free. Okay. And so at that point, we became one big happy or unhappy family. Nonetheless, we became one big band of people, period. And that's where we are down to today. Now, some people may want to trace their family lineage to someone that was enslaved, and that's absolutely fine. Some people will trace their family members back to the 1870 census and then stop there. And they may not ever find if there was a slave in their line, but they will be able to solidify that I am a part of this group and therefore I'm a part of the repair. Now, what the repair looks like for those who are not able to trace themselves to an enslaved ancestor, that is not for us to discuss here, nor is it for us to try to create that criteria here. That's not what we are working on. Okay. What it looks like for the people who were never enslaved and what does their repair look like since they were subjugated to all of the harms, the badness and vestiges of slavery from 1865 forward, what that looks like, I'm certainly not the expert, and I don't think Jake or Dawn are. And so I'm not willing to take that task on as a conversation. What I was here to do was to share with everyone why it is so important for us to identify our community. Our community is banned. It's Black American Negro descendants. That is who we all are. If you can trace your folks to the 1870 census minimum, I don't say stop there, but minimum 1870. All right. Now, if you're able to do that, what we're asking you to do is we're going to have a private Zoom. People can come.
That's them buffering, not me. It'll come back. Just give it a second.
Did the sun go out?
Yeah, I think so. We might not have to do a whole Zoom. We could do it in the DMs where
Shout out to all the family that's pulling up. Tweet out the space so we can get this going, because we definitely got to address this issue, what's going on, family. And if y'all have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to come up as well. All of the questions will be answered.
Okay, I'm going to stop it before they get to the questions. I'll let them get up to that point, and then we're going to stop it and pray it out. Ivy Dream says, a lot of us are on the 1880 census also. Yes, but Ivy, what she's talking about is 1870 as the cutoff. It doesn't mean that if you can trace your lineage prior to the 1870 census, that those people will be excluded. As far as the 1880 census, I think that would be a non-factor as well. I will absolutely write that down and escalate to the Unity for Our Community, who's paid the lawyers to come up with this 1870, and ask if after 1870, and I'm certain everybody will be inclusive, but I would prefer to ask than to assume. The minimum should be 1880. I will escalate that, Ivy Dreams. Thank you. One of the things that Unity for Our Community discussed as we listened probably in part 2, they have had to evolve. Like, this has been an evolution from the time we formed the former ADOS movement back in 2016. We have evolved to this space where we realize we can't leave out the other half of the Negroes. As she mentioned, there were 500,000 free Negroes in this country before we were emancipated. You may have, like they were saying, when they start tracing their lineage, you may have some of your line on your mama's side may have been from the free, and on your daddy's side may have been from the enslaved. And so band is how we band together, but they're not tied to what they've come up with. And all they're trying to do is get us band together. They want us to be band together so we can get this money right now and not have to wait for the government to play games with the reparations like we have known them to do. Okay? So that's the goal right now, is to get us delineation. I will let them know about the 1880 and ask them if they would raise it from 1870. I'm sure they won't be opposed. Millman says, we don't need to trace. The government knows who we are and who they owe. Don't fall for that trick bag. Once again, Millman, this is not the reparations fight. This is the delineation fight. We have to chew this elephant one bite at a time. We can't fight for reparations with all these groups claiming that they're owed. We want to delineate first and then make our case for the victim group, because melanated immigrants, Pan-Africans in particular, are coming into our meetings being disruptive, wanting flat black reparations when they didn't really, by and large, get here until after the 65 Immigration Act. So I need y'all to stay on code right now in this. We're just focused on delineation. We're not talking about reparations like that. That's not this conversation. Right now, delineation first, then reparations. Let me see what else y'all saying. Trying to get a security clearance. They trace your lineage back 3 generations minimum. They know who we are. No, I understand. Hi, Lionel. That's facts. Okay, so as long as we're on the same page, so you guys don't get frustrated. This ain't the reparations fight. This is the delineation fight. Let's continue.
Guarantee. So, yeah, tweet out the space, because we definitely gotta stand on paperwork at this time. We can't go off on our own thinking, and we can't allow individuals to come Johnny come lately try to paper erase us. That's not going down. We're Black American Negro descendants, and we could prove that. All this other stuff we cannot prove on a mass level and cover all of our people. So we got to stand on the position which we could cover all of our people.
Yeah. Let me since we have new people in the room, I'll just read through the codes that Unity for Our Community is recommending. So on the first page,
Satra, oh, thank you, Michael. Thank you, Millman. I meant that as a rebuttal to the argument that we can't delineate. Oh, okay, Millman, that's fine. No, but we need to do it for ourselves because they're clearly not going to let us. So now we have to force our delineation. Michael Pan, welcome to the live. I understand about delineation. Very good. Ivy Dreams, a lot of freedmen were still afraid of the government during the 1870 census. Thank you, Ivy. I'm going to take that back to the team. I'm going to text them now. Satra says, in Cobra and NARC are not blocking delineation. Satra, not directly. Indirectly, NARC and Cobra are blocking delineation through our legacy organizations. NAACP and National Urban League blocked us from delineating, claiming that it was discriminatory against other melanated immigrants in America who want to identify as Black American. But we understand why. They want to ethnocide and then genocide us. And if they do it based on skin tone, then that's an easy thing to do, because white folks are none the wiser. None of the other groups give a damn. But we have to give a damn. This is our fight. Ivy says, I believe we have to win the delineation fight before the reparations fight. Correct. That's exactly why I'm sharing this solution with you guys. So do you, Funny Face says, so do you have a form or something for us to delineate? And how do we get the paperwork to sign? I understand at TRP and appreciate all the work you all are doing. Thank you, Funny Face. You guys, if you want to be able to get a link to the survey, please Gmail me at therepperspect@gmail.com. weaponizing.com. Once I give you the link, please give it to everyone you know. We're trying to get at least 2 million of us to sign on 3025 as American Negro and 3020 as Black American Negro descendants on this ACS survey so we can get these trillions flowing to us. And what Asan was mentioning was that we will be the service providers. We're going to teach you guys how to become your own nonprofits and be able to get a portion of this monies to give to your communities. But you must Gmail me at the repperspect@gmail if you want to do one or both, okay? If you want to join the band and make sure we get a band around our collective so that we can have the trillions flowing directly to us and corner off everything that's owed to us that they're giving away freely to these other groups who have already band together under their own causes, like LGBTQ has band together. They get free housing. They get all types of money. All these other groups, no matter their differences, they have come together to get this paper that we've been denied. So we want to show a collective strong front under the Unity for Our Community. You can both identify as band. We'll send you the survey. And you can also find out how to become a service provider, how to set up as a nonprofit to actually help, once we procure the monies for you, get it dispersed to our collective, okay? Gmail me. It's streaming on the bar below, and it's in the description bar. Okay, yes, I'll put it in the chat. Let's see here. Yes, I have to win. Oh, yes, you must. We have to win delineation because that was our first fight out here in California. Our first fight for a large portion of the task force was fighting NARC and NCOBRA for delineation, for reparations. We had to fight to get delineation so we could get lineage-based reparations. We had to fight them. So yes, delineation is the first fight to set us up for the win. In the meantime, we got to eat because we need to survive this thing called life until the reparations are flowing. And we also need to get at Trump's table. I played you at the top of the broadcast where he's thanking Black Americans and the Latinos, but I'm dealing with us exclusively. He thanked us and said he would not forget how generous and kind that we've been and that he's here to help fulfill the dream of Martin Luther King Jr. We're going to see if he's lying or not because we are finally at the table. I've been telling you guys since I returned that I've got comrades at these tables, and these are some of the fights that we're going to be bringing to him to help get his assistance in creating laws to give us delineation and some form of reparations. We're going to be pushing for that. But first things first, let's focus. Send me the Gmail. I'll type it in the chat. Let me finish so we can get out of here.
It's just some boxes that show that it is an inclusive definition. It's clearly delineating. The ACS codes enable immediate delineation, enumeration, and resource allocation. Avoids confusion because it distinguishes ethnicity from race, and stronger advocacy. The ACS code's data collection will enable effective data-driven advocacy and policy. So on the second page, why ACS codes 3020 band and 3025 American Negro work for our ethnic group. Provides a broader framework encompassing the foundational population of individuals classified by the U.S. Census as Black, Negro, or mulatto prior to 1870. The banned ACS code would apply to those individuals who self-identify as descendants of those classified by the U.S. Census as Black, Negro, and mulatto prior to 1870. American Negro ACS code would apply to those individuals who self-identify as descendants of those classified by the U.S. Census as Negro and mulatto prior to 1870. This provides an umbrella for advocacy and resource allocation now. So those are unity for our community. And the last page up there just gives you information about the American Community Survey, which covers about 40 topics, and helps inform how trillions of dollars in federal funds are distributed each year.
Each year, y'all.
And supports over 300 evidence-based federal government uses. So the adoption of ACS Code 3020 would enable robust assessment of disparities for Black Americans who self-identify as descendants of those Black American, Negro, and mulatto populations present here before 1870. And same goes for Negro. So I think it's amazing. Well, I'm glad we've gotten here. I'm glad we've circled the wagons.
And can I say
We've broken the code.
Hey, Sister Dawn.
Mm-hmm.
Can I say this real quick? Because we're talking delineation, right? We're talking delineation, but we got to make delineation real. How else are we gonna make it real other than the OMB and making the government acknowledge what we're doing and that we're a different ethnic group other than other individuals who come over here and try to immigrate into our ethnic group. We're on a planet that these people could immigrate into Black American or Black Americans immigrate into somebody else ethnic group. That's preposterous. I mean, that's something that should be never taking place. That's a eraser. These people is trying to ethnicize us. So if we're gonna be talking delineation and we're not gonna put our best foot forward, what the fuck are you talking about delineation for? We got to really walk it how we talk it.
Yeah,
And this is definitely.
What's the point? What's the point? You see that video
exactly.
I dropped?
Because it make you feel good, because it sound good. Let's get this work done. And that's what I've been talking about as it and that's why I connected with Sister Dawn and Sister Son. Sister Son and Sister Dawn, not exactly in that order, but that's neither here or there. These sisters is definitely working on a strategy to disaggregate us from these foreigners, melanated foreigners. And we definitely need to support what's going on because and stand on paperwork. We can't be paper erased by individuals or Johnny come lately. We definitely got to stand on our ethnic group, our ethnicity, and what we could prove that we are.
Yes. And this allows everyone who can trace themselves back or is a descendant of people classified. This includes your FBA, your ADOS, your Solon, your American Freedmen. You can identify however you want. You know, we have all the different sections of the band coming together, playing one note so that we can close these disparities out here. Y'all got to listen to this Mississippi female rapper. Really, it's very much on point.
When Dawn, I get it. I get what you're saying when you trying to bring all of our people together. You know what I mean? But these acronyms is new, and it's non-existent amongst Black Americans for real. I could walk outside and see how many people classify themselves as freemen, ADOS, or FBA, or Solon, or whatever you want to call. These people want to wake up in the morning and call themselves. It's extremely important when we deal with the government. We deal with paperwork. We deal with paperwork. You can call yourself whatever you want, but call yourself that in your basement. Don't be going to the OMB with these new acronyms. That's off code, and you're running interference. Don't you know 18,000 Black Americans stood on being Black Americans, the ones who knew about the OMB? And a lot of our people, millions of people, didn't know about the OMB. And we still outshine these individuals by a long shot. It was only like what, 200-300 tops of them. Sister son, she did the count in the census. The majority rule. We're going by paperwork. We're not allowing these grifters to paper erase us or ethnicize us because they getting some change put in their pocket. Those days is over with. And I'm not siding with that. I'm not a person that's gonna go along to get along. I don't get along with y'all that's trying to ethnicize Black Americans. We're Black American Negro descent, and we need to stand on that, and we could prove that. And that covers all our people: Black American Negro descent, free Blacks, enslaved Blacks, free Negroes, enslaved
It really
Negroes. That
does.
cover us all.
It's perfect. It's perfect. It does. It literally covers us all. And like you said, it's all tied to paperwork that the government.
Something going on with a sister or son.
Yeah, I see
You're
her.
gonna have to drop her and bring her back up. Drop her from co-host and then give her the co-host back, because that be happening to me a lot. They got a shadow ban. When that start happening, it's a shadow banding going on.
Ivy Dreams, I am texting.
Now we talking about the OMB, something real, something that's gonna actually make a change and make real what we talking about. Now they want to start shadow banding us. That's okay.
Can y'all hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, we can hear
Oh
you
my
now.
God. I mean, I was like, oh my goodness, I'm just completely silenced out of the whole space, but that's cool. What I did want to do was add to what you all were saying. I want to help people to appreciate something else. On the last decision in the early part of 2024, the OMB decided not to move with giving us a separate category that was specific to our heritage and our lineage here. And the basis of that was because they said that basically it was total confusion within our group. They didn't disagree that we needed it, but they said it was total confusion in our group, one, and two, that the legacy organizations had a larger voice than us, and therefore they were going to continue to study it and then revisit it. So first, I want to make clear that that situation is not and has not ended, and it will never end. Okay, because we can continue to fight for that as we're doing here with the ACS coding. But here's the important thing to that. Again, if we do not secure the formal ACS code of 3020, that does not mean that we cannot do two things. First, we should absolutely still do the ACS survey and write in 3020 and write in ban, because we're creating our community. And in doing that, what that does is that it helps us at the OMB level as we try to continue to move forward with redefining what Blackness is here in the United States, because the legacy organizations have their ear in their eyes because they have the history over us. But our voices will be much louder as we move forward in saying this is our community. We are of the band community, and this is our code. This is how we're identifying, which will then force the hand of the OMB to take us serious and listen to us over the legacy organizations. And so it matters, as what Jake was saying, that we cannot go to the ACS or to the census through the ACS survey on February 18th. And remind you, February 18th is not a date where you're going to be able to call in, or at least it isn't right now. It's the last day for submission for your position on how you want to identify. And so what we don't want is for people to send in their submissions with all of these other acronyms, because out in the real world, people don't know these other acronyms. But people understand Black American and people understand Negro because it's on their birth certificates. And if it's not on their birth certificates, then it's on their parents' birth certificates. Such like my parents. I don't have Negro on my birth certificate. I have Black. But I understand if I see the word Negro, that's my parents. And that means that is me. Right? And so the more we do this, the ACS survey can be taken annually up to 5 years. They collect that data. So understand that when the 2030 OMB stuff comes out, we can ensure our win by what we do today on the ACS survey by committing to saying, this is our community. It is banned. And within the band community, we may have various sects, such like the disabled, the veterans, right? Whatever else, the freedmen, whatever else you want to identify as, or whatever else your formal status is. You may be a legislator, a delegate, right? Those are statuses. It does not negate the fact that you are a part of the band community. And that is what we need to make sure that we understand moving forward, that the census does not have the power to deny us this. The only people who have the power to deny us of this is us, this
Say
community.
that again.
Period. The only people that have the power to deny us this community's code of 3020 for ban is our community. Now we can stay here and keep fighting, and we'll be out another $1 trillion this year. That's up to everybody here. Or we can say, as we use for the LGBTQ plus, for the Pan-Africans and for all the other people, they were at least smart enough to say, we might be LGBTQ plus. Now we don't like each other because we got Black ones, Asian ones, Puerto Ricans, and Hispanics. But one thing for certain, two things for sure we have in common. We want to rock under LGBTQ plus, and we want to create a community. So guess what? Every time they speak of that group, what do they call them? A community.
How about this? They have a whole federal housing program, homes for people with AIDS. So that's what they turn that into.
And that's crazy, right? And that's crazy. You mean to tell me some mentally ill people who want to be acknowledged for what they do in the privacy of their own bedroom and oppress Black Americans, right? Can't get together more than mentally ill people? Who's the mentally ill, them or us?
Well, based on what we're seeing right now, I'm not going to identify us as being mentally ill. I'm going to say that we are confused because of the harms and the traumas and the constant name changes and then the constant legal hurdles we have to jump over to be recognized. I get it. We all get it, that this nation has not made it easy for us to settle on how we should identify. They have changed the whole story of our history. They've changed where we came from. Were we already here? Did we come across the ocean? Did somebody create a hidden plane and dropped off all of us here? They continue to alter everything about our existence. But we now have control of that. We have control of it. And so
I'm gonna say,
go ahead.
I'm gonna say this real quick, sister and son. It gotta be some mental illness going on. It's mental illness, it's self-grandizement, it's grifting. There's a lot that's going into this. And what and there's no way in the world the United States government could keep their foot on our neck the way, or knee on our neck the way they've been doing if it wasn't for these sick Negroes. Because truth be told, that's what we are, Black American Negro descendants. And it ain't the masses. The masses don't know what's going on, but the gatekeepers do. They couldn't have been as successful in getting this play by of ethnicizing us if they didn't have total cooperation of, and we're finding out now, right, that a lot of our people are mentally ill. We're finding out in the election where we're finding out that the Democratic Party is full of mentally ill people, right? Because they don't believe in family. They believe in killing their babies. They believe in sexual degeneracy and everything that's against nature. We got to do what is natural, and everybody else on this planet is doing what natural, and that's looking out for their own community and ethnic group. But then when it comes to Black Americans, we don't got no blood to bleed. We don't got no looking out to do for each other. You tell me in what home that I'm gonna feed another person's child before I feed my child. I'm gonna leave my child starving while I feed everybody else's child. That's crazy. That's mentally ill and that's sick.
And the truth be told, it may be all of that because of the many, many traumas that we've suffered through. Right. And I'm not talking about going back to the slavery days. I'm talking about in our current day, although we know that trauma is genetically passed through to your next generations. At this point, those of us who are able to see past all of what we've been through, those of us who are able to understand the concept of everyone else has created a community, rather it's an immigrant community, rather it's a LGBTQ plus community, rather it's a non-English speaking community, rather it's a Spanish speaking community. People have created these communities because they understood and they cracked the code to how they can access resources by making themselves a community, one collective with different issues within it, but the foundation is one thing. And for them, it may be their choice of sexuality. For some, it may be that they all speak Spanish, right? For us, it is our history that ties us to the 1870 census. That is our common ground here. And if you are tied to the 1870 census, then you belong to this community. And that community, for right now, what we're proposing is the 3020 code for BAN, Black American Negro Descendants. That is what we're proposing so that we can finally put up a band around this community, start directing resources into our community, not just the Black community, because right now the Black community is a flattening of Blackness because the OMB has refused to grant us the redefining of what Blackness is. But that doesn't mean that we cannot redefine it ourselves through our common actions together. That we agree to say on the ACS survey, this is what we're all going to do. This is what we're going to go out into our communities and tell them to do when they receive it, so that there will be an undeniable, resounding voice when it comes to the OMB come 2030, that they understand that this community has now spoken. We are saying we are different. We are a separate ethnicity. We are not going to allow a melanated immigrant to come in here and cloak themselves as us to access our benefits or to even drive up or drive down our numbers. They don't get to come in here and assume our ethnicity. But if we don't take that control, and if we don't take those steps now with the ACS coding, then it's on each one of us, and we're going to just keep sitting here arguing about how we're going to identify. Again, the OMB is different than the ACS. I want everyone to understand that. The OMB is the one that writes the definitions for the ethnicity. The ACS uses those definitions, and within those definitions, the ACS then breaks out how people under those definitions self-identify so that they can identify community pockets of communities and then give them resources for what they say their needs are. We are a community. The question is, will we become one for the ACS code?
And also the way that code works is however you write in, you've seen people put examples and you might put in Black, Mexican, whatever. Some people had it grid out and they basically follow the grid, and whatever boxes you check basically gives them equals a code. So that's what we're talking about. We're talking about, instead of having them take us writing in Black, American, whatever, that we're going to upfront write in the code, as opposed to them deciphering what the code is once they tally the responses, which is how they do it.
And I want to say this too, because a lot of people probably don't understand the codes and stuff, because I'm still learning them. But I do understand delineation, right? And that's what we've been talking about for 4 years on this app. 4 years. We're not going to self-identify ourselves out of this pickle that we in as Black Americans. We're not going to self-identify ourselves out of this ethnocide that we're fighting. And how we're going to get up out of this position is disaggregating ourselves from everybody else, and making the United States government recognize that. We can't talk about delineation every day, and we're not putting our best foot forward to delineate and disaggregate ourselves from other melanated people on this planet, right? I would give my life in a New York minute to make, if giving my life would make my ethnic group live, I would do that in a New York minute. You know why? Because I got kids. I got family that I love. And one life ain't worth 50 million Black Americans. So I would give my life for y'all. And we're not asking y'all to give y'all life. We're just asking y'all to acknowledge the paperwork and really make this shit stand, and really put our best foot forward and stand on the paperwork. I'll lean there.
That sounds like a great place to land for this evening's segment. We're now at 7:22. And lo and behold, Ivy Dreams, I was texting some of your recommendations to the illustrious Asan Powell, and she has joined us in this space. How rich, how epic, how blessed are we? Let me bring her to the stage. This is her, y'all. This is Unity for Our Community. This is Capital Accountability Project. This is a commissioner in Maryland whom I've been telling you guys that has found the low-hanging fruit to be effective in her community, in her county in Maryland, who is open and willing to share what she knows with all of you so that you guys can eat now instead of waiting for reparations. She is one of the leaders of Unity for Our Community, and how we got to 3020 Black American Negro descendants. Let's give her a round of applause, y'all. Give her love in the chat. Give her love in the chat. Asan, look at my comrades in the chat. Comrades on Facebook, comrades on X, listening in this late hour on a work night or Martin Luther King Jr. Celebration. We're over here listening to you explain to us our call to action. Say hello to your family.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for inviting me in. And it's
an honor.
No, the honor is mine. I'm always serving our community. That's my job. That's what I feel like I've been ordained to do, is to serve my community. And so if the community calls on me, if I'm available, I'm going to answer the call. So thank you for reaching out. And I'm here, ready to answer questions.
Okay.
Well, we just got through 53 minutes of your space with Jake and Dawn, and it's been rich and it's been epic. And I listened to it first before I shared it with the viewers. So I've been managing quite a bit, but we can actually go through the rest of their comments before I pray us out and let them get some rest, because they're going to have to come back for a part 2. But you have to let me know when you're free, because I would love to have you come back. Either, I basically talk about the cosplaying immigrants first. We got through Angela Rye tonight. We got through Kamala tonight. And I could have swore there was one more, but I can't recall. So I do that at the top half, and then I bring in your space. So we're going to do the second half of your space tomorrow. So if you want to, we're going to do it when you're available to come back in and bless us, because they might have more questions that I might not be able to answer. So we'll coordinate when we bring back part 2, which is the end of this particular series. I didn't realize I'd have to do it in 2 parts, but it was a lot to share. And of course, I wanted to get through at least half of your space because it was so epic. So they are really clear about the mission. Some of them were asking about the survey. They want to participate in the survey. They want to learn how to build a nonprofit to become service providers. So I have them emailing me so that I can forward all of that to you.
I mean, the main thing right now is just for all of us to remember that the ACS, the ACS survey and the Census Bureau is different than the OMB. I think that is one of our main points of confusion right now, that we should understand that the OMB is the driver. So liken it to it being the parent. It's the one that defines us. And the ACS survey follows that definition, and then they create the identifiers how people choose to identify, right? And that's the difference. Here, I don't know if you guys have gotten to the part of the recording where we discuss that we kind of put the cart before the horse, or the horse before the cart, whichever way you want to say it, because we went through the OMB process first, seeking to be redefined versus securing a code based on the law of how you can self-identify. So the biggest takeaway that I want to share with people today, because I don't want to delay your show from ending, is this. I can't stress it more to everyone. We have already won this round, period. We have won this round. Why do I say that? I say that because we don't need their approval for us to get the 3020 code for BAN and the 3025 code for American Negro. If they don't give it to us formally, each and every one of us can, when we do our ACS survey, write in 3020 BAN, and we can write in 3025 American Negro. We have a right under the law to secure how we want to identify. And so this is a win-win situation for us. The first win will be that they accept our request and formally give us the code on the ACS survey, so that all we have to do is color in the little oval space. But if they don't, we don't care. We will continue to do what we're supposed to do to create our community so that enumeration can take place for this community. So all we have to do is simply self-identify. If we can get Pan-African on there, Blackstick, and all the other acronyms on there that these people have, then we can secure ours. And if we do that, we will secure our win, we will secure our resources, we will secure enumeration, and we will secure our future moving forward in our advocacy when it comes to securing reparative justice. Rather it's reparations, rather it's resources, rather it's changing legislation. They will no longer be able to truly say that they do not know who we are and that they are unable to count us. So please know as I said in that room, I am asking everyone to understand this is not a battle about who got here first, who wants their name elevated. It's strictly a battle for us to understand our win is here. Now, it's up to each one of us to secure that win or to give it up, because we're still standing on different things that really don't make a difference at this point. We are one group of people with multiple statuses within that one group. We are Black American Negroes, descendants, because descendants are those who may not have Negro or Black American on their birth certificates. So they may be a tad bit confused, but they are our descendants. We are our ancestors' descendants. That encompasses all of us. It leaves none of us out, so long as we can trace ourselves back to the 1870 census. You do not have to trace yourself to the 1870 census in order to check ban. But if and when, I'm not going to say if, when we receive our reparative justice, it will be on each and every one of us to be able to verify that we are actually a part of this band. So please understand, the work has been done. We are still meeting behind the scenes with the Census Bureau, the ACS, people who conduct the surveys and who are writing out these codes. That work is being done. But notice, this time, they don't get to tell us no. This time, these legacy organizations don't get to undermine us. If we show up in droves and we put in a 30/20 code, come 2030, when the OMB redetermines what Black is in the United States, the legacy organizations will no longer be able to use their long-standing historic relationship to undermine us, because we should show up 2 million, 3 million, 4 million strong on the ACS code and saying we are banned, and therefore we have silenced them. We have taken back the authority that we were supposed to have within our community. We're not allowing nonprofits or the government to dictate to us any longer. So the only thing I can say to the community that I descend from and that I service is, please understand, when the ACS survey comes out, please put in ban 30/20 ban and 30/25 American Negro. Know that the calculation that they use, if you check American Negro and if you check ban, then it calculates back to ban. If you check Black and then you check American Negro, it's going to calculate back to ban. There's a rhythm to the way they do their formula for calculations, and we understand that. And that's why we had to make sure that American Negro was listed. So I'm not going to prolong it. That's all I wanted to say. I am more than happy to come back and expound with all the questions, any concerns, whatever it may be, good, bad, ugly, or indifferent. If we don't provide clarity to our community, then we fail. And so I'm open to listening, hearing the feedback, and I'm open, giving it back out to you guys. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Please stay with us for a few more minutes. I did want to ask, is it possible to talk to all these other groups that, we were competing with for delineation when we went before the OMB, like Yvette and like Tyreek? Is it possible to get them on the band page? I bet it is. If you and Dawn, have a sit down with them, I bet we could get them to buy into band.
Anything is possible. To what extent we can do that, and to what extent we will be successful in that, truly depends on our community. People who identify as ADOS, Freedmen, FBA, Solon, and anything else, they should go to the people who they are repping, and they should talk to them. This is not an argument. It's not a race, and it's not a fight. It's just a requirement for our preservation. right? And so all of us have to do our part. All of us need to go and talk to them. They hear us. They know that we're out here. We've been reached out to. We've been asked questions. But at the end of the day, Unity for Our Community is just a small little work group. We're not anyone special. We're just a work group working for our community to try to do the best thing that we can do to help when it comes to the advocacy and our reparative justice and us being seen and heard. So really, that question should go out to your audience. What responsibility level will the audience take in going to the people who they represent, for however way they identify? Go to those people and talk to them, educate them. And if they are open to having a conversation, then certainly we are open to having that conversation with them. But we're not going to argue, fuss, and fight, because it doesn't change anything. At the end of the day, we're not dealing with status. We're not dealing with reparations as far as what the criteria looks like. We are strictly talking about enumeration, resource allocation, and data collection for this community. That's what we're on. We're not in competition with trying to tell people how or what way they should advocate when it comes to reparations and who should be a part of it. We have recognized that, and this has been for a long time, we've all said this: divided they fall, right? Together, we already know. If we stand together, we're stronger.
Yep.
We're trying to unify our community so that we stand together, so that we get the resources necessary so that we can actually fight. So I'm open to meeting with anyone. I'm sure I speak for the Unity for Our Community work group, that they would agree that we are open to speaking with anyone that wants to talk to us. But what we do need to do is put the onus on every one of us to spread the word, because the legacy organizations, they're going to do their part in spreading their word. And it's our job to do our part in spreading our word.
Absolutely. Well, let's get to some of the comments so I can pray us out. They should accept Freedman Records. Now, Ivy Dreams, this is how you ended up seeing me, because I was texting as my illustrious co-hosts were in the chat. And Ivy asked if the minimum could be raised to $18.80, and if you could also accept Freedman Bureau records. But I don't, from what I understand, none of that is really a criteria for this mission. Could you expound on that?
Correct. Again, people are conflating reparations arguments and reparations as far as the criteria with coding when it comes to the ACS survey. The ACS survey is not involved in that part of it at all. All right. The ACS survey strictly is looking at how can we count these people. And as I said in the space yesterday, the same way the LGBTQ plus people created a community for themselves so that they can be counted, so that they can be seen, heard, and identified, and resources can get to them, it's the same thing that we are doing. We must create a community that can be counted, that can be surveyed, so that they can identify, so that we can identify what our disparities are, what our harms are. This is not about a status. This is about enumeration and creating a community for enumeration. That's it.
Thank you. So, Ivy, that's just a benchmark. All of proving who you are will come much later. This is just get in there, fill in the survey, kind of throw out the 1870 out of your mind, and know that that's for, reparations or whatever comes of us banding together. You can absolutely band and mark the survey 3025 for American Negro and 3020 for Black American Negro descendants without repercussion or consequence surrounding whether or not you can prove it. So please, welcome one, welcome all.
And that's what it's about. And we have to understand that if we, at some point, when we do establish an office for us at the federal level and at our local levels, they are going to need to know where to look for us at. Right now, you can't find us because we're identifying as Pan-Africans. We're identifying as all these other titles, right? So people, the government does not know where is that harmed class group, or at least they're arguing that they don't know. Now we know that, right? They can pretend all day like they don't know. We know that they know, but we're not going to sit here and keep arguing with them about, okay, we know you know. No, we don't know. What we're saying is we're going to now simplify that. We're going to create that community so that they have the data at the government, at the federal government level from here on out. So when we do get in office and when we do get benefits for those who descend from U.S. chattel slavery here, the government will know to pull the data on the band, and then they will call for you to have to provide documentation that you are of that class group that were a part of the enslaved people here in the United States of America through U.S. chattel slavery. Now, if you cannot prove that at that time, then you would not receive reparations if it's for slavery, but you will still be eligible for reparative justice because you were here on that census at a minimum of 1870. And the reason, again, why we said 1870, because we know that the census is every 10 years. So 1860 was prior to the emancipation. So we use 1870 for that point and that point only. But again, freedman is just a status, just like we said in the meeting. Unemployed person is just a status. This is not only about slavery. This is about all of us who were here, the foundational population of Black Americans. And that's something that we as a collective group have to recognize and stop doing. We don't get to cut our people out because we're only focused on the slaves. The slaves were not the only ones that were here.
And the slaves are not the only ones that were injured.
Exactly. But they weren't the only ones who were us that were here. We had freed Blacks. When you listen to that room, you hear me tell you about the history of the freed Blacks. You hear me
500,000.
Yes, and you hear me tell you, like in the state of Maryland, it was over 83,000. In the state of California, I think it was like 7,000 and something. And then in various states, there were 53,000, then 25,000, but it totaled over about 500,000. And so after we were freed, based on the 13th Amendment of 1865, those free Blacks became Negroes just like us. We were always Negroes, but we just had different statuses. Some of us were free and some of us were enslaved. And then after the 13th Amendment, all of us were free. No one stopped anyone at that point and said, show me your papers to show me that you were free or that you're enslaved. We were all just Negroes. And so we don't have the right to cut out a large portion of our people because they can't tie themselves to slavery. After the 1865 13th Amendment, we were all subject to Black codes, convict leasing, Jim Crow, and all of the other traumas that we know down to this day. And there was no distinction between us as free or freed men. And so we have to come together as a collective group and recognizing there are different statuses within it. Just like we don't get to say, oh, because a Black American Negro is disabled, they're not of this group because their status is disabled, not freedmen. You don't have that right to do that. We have to stop that. We have to stop causing dissension within our own group and recognize we have different statuses. It does not negate the fact that I am still a part of this community.
Yes, but to your point, this is what the Pan-Africans, the melanated immigrants love to use. One of the biggest fights we had here in California was over race versus lineage-based reparations, because they believe they are owed reparations because they migrated into our, racism. And my argument has always been that they should start their own fight for reparations. They should not be allowed to migrate into racism and then piggyback and make it harder for us and undermine our reparations fight, because they want race-based, which can't happen in this country since the upending of affirmative action.
So our position again is this: we are only focused on those people, the foundational population of Black Americans who were here prior to the 1870s. None of us who are the foundational population came after 1870. You were already here. And so just because your status changed, again, doesn't change the fact that you were here during the 1776 Revolutionary War. You were here during the onset of the Civil War in 1863, and you lived through that. You were here when the Reconstruction Amendments were created, the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. And then you were here through the decimation of our Reconstruction, and then through all of the traumas that we suffered through down to current day. A melanated immigrant cannot trace themselves back to that census minimum. They just can't. And so we don't have to go back and forth with one another about it, because a freedman would not be a freedman if they came after 1870. What would they have been freed from? The 13th Amendment freed us in 1865. And so how do we get to the point of saying that we're excluding people within our group? No, because the census, those classifications were given to us by the government. We didn't pick them, we didn't choose them, they were given to us. So if you were classified as a mulatto, freed Black, freedman, Negro, right? Those classifications were given to us. Even just Black at that time were given to us. We did not select those. Now, Negro, Black is on our birth certificates. Colored is on our birth certificates. We were born into that because that's what our government assigned us. No one else can trace themselves to that census or beyond with that status but us. And so I don't know how the thought process works that we're leaving out anyone in our group, because everyone in our group, whether you were enslaved or a free Black, would have been here if you're in this group prior to 1870. You would have been here.
Well, let me ask the next question. It leads me to Ivy's question about that 1870. She states, a lot of freedmen ex-slaves will be left out if they only look at 1870 census. Is it possible to bump that to 1880? Because she's saying, like I text you prior, that lots of us feared filling in the census because we didn't trust the government.
First of all, back then, we didn't fill in the census. The census, they came door to door and they
filled it in for us.
They wrote it in for us. We didn't have an option of not filling it in. Okay.
Okay. But they also filled in whatever they pleased.
Exactly. And we understand that. But when you look at the census, The census, first of all, did not start in 1870.
No.
So that's why we say 1870 and back, because we understand that the government played games, yes, right? But at the end of the day, you will show up on the census. Your ancestors will show up on the census. Now, if you can't, we put the stopping point at 1870. It doesn't mean that you can't verify yourself past 1870. We say that in the room that we were in yesterday. All right. That was just a cutoff point. The idea is this: we are putting a gate up around our community. If there is a challenge where someone is having a hard time tracing themselves to the 1870 census or beyond, again, I don't see that happening. But if it was to happen, one thing we know for sure was they were not allowing melanated immigrants over into this country during that time period. And so if your relative shows up on the 1880 census, I don't see it as any one of us saying, well, you're not one of us.
Right.
Okay.
Because the melanated immigrants really didn't come until after the 1965 Immigration Act, correct?
Right. The Hart-Steller Act of 1965. And then they still didn't really come in masses until the 1990s. And so, again, we're not here trying to lock out any of our people. What we did was simply select that date because it was the first census following our
emancipation.
Correct. And so certainly if you cannot trace your family to the 1870 census, you should certainly be able to trace them to the 1880 or the 1860 or the 1850 census. It's not possible for them to have never been counted here because they were going door to door.
Yep.
So it's
like
not
they do now. We have
Exactly.
census takers out here. You can actually be a census taker and earn like $20 an hour. At least out here you could.
Right.
And let's move on so I don't belabor because you guys are on the East Coast. Son, you can drop off whenever you need. I thought all agreed that bills, this is Satra Delry 360, hi love. I thought all agreed that bills and laws acknowledge us as freedmen. The Bureau, the laws, Reconstruction acknowledge freedmen. We allow them to take our name. Why not reclaim freedmen? Did you want to address it or you want me to, Hassan?
What I will say to that is this. Freedman is a status. Freedman is not on anyone's birth certificate. Freedman does not apply to everyone here. So we have to open our minds up and allow ourselves to recognize that freedman is a status of a specific group of people who were enslaved here. Most of us may be able to trace ourselves back to an enslaved person, but what about the people who were not enslaved here? Now, argumentatively, you can say, well, after 1865, since we were all one group, then we intermingled. True. But unless you trace each and every person's individual lineage, you cannot stand on saying that everyone is going to be able to trace themselves to an enslaved person to get the status of a freedman. And therefore, we must look at everyone that is a part of our community. We don't get to focus on just one status group within the whole Black American Negro community.
Thank you. Satra goes on to say, home for AIDS, I heard, but home for LGBTQ, I never heard. So on the ACS, there is a LGBTQ category and funding? What type of funding? No funds for trans surgery?
You have to go into the LGBTQ plus community and you'll see all of the funding that they receive. You have to research the legislation specifically in your states and at the federal level. LGBTQ plus people have legislation protections, and they have funding for different issues that they have within their community. But as I said in that Twitter space, they got the memo that we hadn't gotten yet, which was we must create a community so that they can do enumeration, data collection, and once they do that, they will do resource allocation. And that is what we're now doing. We're creating our community.
Thank you. Lanita Jones, welcome to the live. Nope, we're not confused. Just too many people play victim, crook, and save massa mindset. Stop accepting empty Democrat promises with no tangibles. Use our votes to bargain for what we want. Amen, Lanita. Thank you for your commentary. I did want to ask you, Asan, it's not just the legacy orgs that have failed us. What about the Congressional Black Caucus? How is it that we continue to be taxed without representation? They are the ones that should be bringing this information to us. What you and Unity for Our Community has worked so diligently for free. We pay them multiple six-figure salaries and are still on the bottom. Did you want to weigh in as to why we're being sold out in this egregious way?
I mean, history speaks for itself, right? We already know that we have those amongst us that are of this ethnicity, of this lineage, that will sell out our greater community for their own personal gain. That's just the reality of life, and especially when it comes to us, because they have no loyalty to the self-preservation of their greater community. Their loyalty lies in their own personal aspirations. But we as a community have an opportunity set before us for the next 4 years that allow us to really amplify our voices. We have the opportunity to shut down the NAACP, the NARCs, the NCOBRAs, all of these legacy organizations, as well as these elected officials who have sold us out for the dollar or for power that they call power, right? We can do that by creating our community, getting ourselves counted, getting the data collection done, having it being housed at the federal government level, and then us sitting at the table and taking the resources off the table, putting it back into our communities, creating the service providers that will then, again, the business owners are the ones who were our leaders in our days of past. So the business owners, we will now become again. We will become the service providers. And in doing that, we will begin to educate and control who we send in these elected seats. Right now, we don't have a business class group at all that really exists in most of our communities. So we are led by anyone that comes there. And unfortunately, most of the business owners that control the resources in our communities do not come from our lineage. And therefore, we get every 4 years people coming around, knocking on our doors, selling us hope. And then we just go ahead and vote blue no matter who. We are taking that back now. But in order for us to be strong in taking that back, we have to create the community. We have to be counted. We have to be able to enumerate ourselves and then identify what the harms are based on the ACS survey, forcing the government to maintain those records so that when we get the resources, we will be able to control the flow of the resources of what needs to be done. And then we control our voting, because people will start seeing a change, and therefore they will begin to engage in the political system because they see the change. Until that happens, we're going to continue to sit here and stay frustrated. And that's just
I concur. Well, I think that you answered Satra's next question. How do we dismantle NAACP, NCOBRA, NARC, and Urban League, these blockers? And I think Asan just answered it. We have to be our own representation. We have to come together as unity for our community, has given us our marching orders, our call to action, and actually band together to defeat them. And it starts with delineation. Did you want to add to that about how we dismantle these organizations?
The best way that we can dismantle these organizations is, one, that we get on local commissions within our states that have money attached to it and that have authority attached to it, so that we can begin to control the resources that are coming into our community. Secondly, once we get access to the resource, then we have to be responsible in helping to set up the organizations to ensure that they have the capacity that they need to be able to provide the services. Our community we are constantly looking for leaders, and we're constantly looking for solutions. And because these legacy organizations have been planted in our communities and they have this fake face of doing something for us, this fake face of Blackness, we continue to, in droves, believe in them. There's no viable challengers. That is us now. That is CAP. That is the reparationist perspective. That is unity for our community. That is every organization that can hear our voices. That's every person that creates an organization that reaches out and says, I'm going to seat myself now. I'm going to reach out for the resources. I'm going to talk to the people who can help me get these resources. And then I'm going to become a viable contender of leadership and advocacy within my community. It's each one of us. That's how we compete with them.
We are still the solution that Yvette Carnell told us to go out here and be way back when the former ADOS was formed. We are the solution. So once again, if you want to learn how to be a commissioner and get at that table where those resources are being given to whites and white identifying immigrants to spend at their discretion, all the while in the name of our never-ending Holocaust, because that's happening and has been happening for years. A son has cracked that code and has managed to be left charged of millions for her community, for her to dole out to the Negroes where she presides over those money. She's at the table and she's all too willing to show you how, to walk you through how. But you must Gmail me at thereperspect@gmail to get that information, and I can forward it to her. Let's see here. Now, Lanita Jones. Oh, we're at 8:02. Okay, I'm going to take this last one, and then we'll come back tomorrow. It's 11 o'clock on the East Coast. Legal migration is good, but illegal is bad. Wake up to the reality. No, Lanita, actually, there needs to be a moratorium on mass legal immigration as well. The problem here is our votes have been used to bring us to the precipice of our own erasure and replacement with immigrants. What the government has been doing is spending our reparations, our taxes, and our Social Security and our votes to erase and replace us with both. The illegals, they just turned on the spigot during the Joe Biden administration, and on mass immigration too. Case in point, there's 282 million immigrants that are legal here. And if the blacks had turned out the vote for Kamala, you would have been looking at another 50 million between DACA and the illegals that they would have quickly made citizens with the black vote, which would have tightened the end of the line here. Because as you see, when they get into power politically, when they are at the hiring tables of the corporate, the private, and the public sectors, they're all on code to economically genocide Negroes, okay? And it doesn't matter. It's from the low skilled labor all the way through the executive branch. All you have to do is take a trip down 400 videos I've done to date to really, really see the playbook of both the OMB and our government. They're complicit. So no, we need a moratorium. There should be no more legal immigration here until the Negro is flourishing in the country of our ancestors. I just finished a 5-part series dealing with this very issue of how we're being erased and replaced in every industry. And it, its origins of that series is the HB1 visa. It's not just happening in tech. That's what they want you to focus on, as if it's not happening across industries. And that 5-part series will show you the data and the slides on how this is happening. So that's where I stand on that. Okay, so with that being said, Asan, you can stick around. I'm going to do our declare and decree and then pray us out. And then I'm going to close on a really awesome video that my daughter, who's evolving into an understanding of her inner Christ, she sent me a really great video, a TikTok. I'll let that be the thing that closes us out before the outro. But with that being said, it's a quick one, and then I'll play the outro. Thank you so much, Asan, and we hope that you surprise us again and join us for the part 2 of your space and these other slides I've got to show concerning the cosplayer and why it troubles me in the seat of my soul. Thank you so much for your presence here. So let me read this, guys. This is a declare and decree, because I want us to understand that, while we pray, we must still move our feet. We've got to understand that the way our ancestors survived was their spirituality. They had a relationship with their inner Christ, inner Buddha, whatever, Allah, whatever you want to name it. I call it Christ because I grew up as a Christian, and I am a metaphysician now as a New Thought Christian, which means I study the scripture in spirit and in truth. I look for the spiritual mana that undergirds that word to help me flourish. And this is what we need. We need to go back to the basics of what our ancestors heavily relied on to fight and win emancipation on our behalf. They were thinking of the lineage when they gave their lives, and they went with God. They went with their inner Christ. That's your intuition, the things you turn to sustain yourself. Because yes, it's true that the weapons may form, but it's up to each and every one of us to declare the weapons will not prosper. So this is the first declaration that you're going to be writing, burning, and releasing if you choose to participate. If not, I bid you farewell. And thank you for joining us. And we'll see you again for part 2. But you can choose to just meditate on these words as I read them, or you can do the full exercise. I declare and decree that the highest form of righteous judgment is served over all corrupt beings of the government, judicial system, including the police officers, child protective services, judges, attorneys, FBI agents, the CIA, and all personnel working for the U.S. corporation with wicked intentions. All hidden corruption and agendas are now destroyed forevermore, in spirit and in flesh, in sleep and in awakened states, across all timelines, realms, and dimensions, known and unknown. Now, as you watch this written document go up in flames, give thanks to the Most High God for granting you the power and the authority to bring down this judgment, and then call on your entire spiritual team, which is your ancestors, to come in and assist you with establishing the things you desire in spirit and in flesh. So if you desire more wealth, enlist your spiritual team. If you desire more love, better relationships, enlist the help of God, your inner Christ, your spiritual team. Whatever it is your heart desires to make manifest, you can enlist your inner Christ, your ancestors, to bring it into fruition. And it only works if you work it, okay? So after you've done the burning and releasing, you can write this down on a candle with a permanent marker. All corruption of the U.S. corporation and the police force is now exposed, and justice for all wicked deeds and hidden acts, known and unknown, is now exposed and being punished and established in spirit and in flesh, in sleep and in awakened states across all timelines, realms, and dimensions, known and unknown. And so it is. Now, once you've done that, you burn that candle until it burns out, and then you can repeat that on another candle. Now, once you create this vacuum that's been created with affirming what we want to experience, in addition to the aforementioned righteous judgment, you can write all of this down in your journal. So you want to journal the things you want to see manifested in your experience, okay? If you want to see reparations come, affirm that. Give thanks that it's already done. If you want to see immediate financial remuneration come to you, affirm it. Give thanks in your journal. If you want that job or that career, that dream job, that dream career to come into fruition, journal, journal, journal. Okay. I know it's a lot to write down, but please consider the impact we will have as spiritual giants on behalf of ourselves, on behalf of our offspring, on behalf of our lineage, and our ancestors will be extremely proud of us. These exercises will be well worth your time and the time that it overall takes to do these exercises. So let me close you out with this prayer before I bring over the young person that's talking about the patience that it takes to actually stand on your spiritual square until things are manifest, okay? Well, let me introduce her first, and then I'll pray us out. Stand by. Thank you for staying for this spiritual exercise. Let me stop the screen and then share it again. Just a second, guys. I gotta find, where did I put that, darling? Okay, here we go.
God, I have a word for you. The Lord is saying, sometimes the posture in which you wait determines how long you'll be waiting for. If you are waiting on the Lord for something, and it could be anything, then this word might be for you. And so, Heavenly Father, I pray that this word reaches who it is meant to reach, Lord, and that you just allow your spirit to speak to them right now. So, mini story time. So tonight I went to McDonald's because I wanted an apple pie. I sometimes get like a sweet tooth late at night for whatever reason. But anyways, I get to the McDonald's and I get to the window and the lady tells me that they just sold out of all the apple pies. And so she said it's going to be like 8 or 9 minutes until they get the new batch up. And so she kind of just assumed I wouldn't want to wait. And so she was just like, you know, did you want anything else? Or is that going to conclude your order? Whatever. And so I paused and I was like, you know what? I'm actually
willing to wait the 8 or 9 minutes. And so then she asked me how many apple pies did I want, and I told her I just wanted one. So I got up to the window, I paid, and then she told me that they'll bring it out to me once the batch comes up. So as I'm sitting there waiting, mind you, I should tell you guys, I put a timer on my phone when I was in the line after I left the speaker for 8 minutes. And so after I was sitting there waiting in the reserve spot, you know, I wasn't expecting the pie to come out before the alarm went off. So it wasn't like I was, you know, looking around or anything like that. Like I was just on my phone. But the guy ends up coming to the window and it scared me. Like I jumped because number one, the timer didn't go off. So I wasn't expecting the apple pie to be done. And so I wasn't prepared to receive this thing before the set time. Like they said 8 or 9 minutes and I was waiting for my alarm to go off. And surely I would have started looking around, you know, to see where they were after the alarm went off. So then as I leave, you know, I don't know why I got this feeling to just check the bag. Like I felt like for some reason I needed to check the bag. And when I checked the bag, I was driving. So I just kind of blindly like put my hand on the bag. I felt 2 boxes and I was like, they gave me 2 apple pies. And she clearly asked me and I clearly said 1. So what am I saying? Let me make it make sense. God said to me immediately after I noticed that there was 2, he said, double for your trouble, double for your suffering. Because you were willing to wait, I'm going to give you more than what you asked for. And I should say, I got a prophecy 2 weeks ago where the woman said, double, God is saying double for your trouble, double for your suffering, right? And so I don't know what you are waiting for, but the posture in which you wait determines how long you'll be waiting for. If I have been, and you know what else? God also revealed to me, sometimes we're irritated or we're nagging and we're just so impatient when we wait for something, but we know we have to wait. Like how foolish is that for me to be sitting there impatient because I have to wait 9 minutes, but I already know that I have to wait on something. If you know that you're expecting God to do this thing for you, but you know you have to wait, why wouldn't you wait with patience? Why wouldn't you wait with peace? Immediately, I thought about the Israelites because the posture that they waited in is what kept them stuck for 40 years. So if you're not familiar with the Israelites, Moses was leading the Israelites out of Egypt and into the promised land. The trip was only supposed to take 11 days, y'all, and it took 40 years. And then it was a whole different generation that even made it to the promised land. But why? Because of the posture in which they waited. They moaned, they groaned, they were looking back at Egypt and wishing and hoping for that life when they were clearly going forward, but they weren't looking forward. So, what does it mean to be patient? The exact definition is patience is the capacity to accept or tolerate delay, trouble, or suffering without getting angry or upset. So I want you guys to just check your heart posture because sometimes we're waiting on the Lord, but the Lord is truly waiting on us. He's waiting on us to view our circumstances and our situation differently and to wait on him with a posture of peace, with joy, with trust, with faith, that everything is going to happen in God's divine timing, right? Psalms chapter 37, verse 7a says, "Be still before the Lord and wait patiently for him." Psalms 130, verse 5 says, "I wait for the Lord, my whole being waits, and in his word I put my hope." So I just want to encourage you guys because he will use anything to speak to me. And what I got from this was just that the posture is important, y'all. And because you're willing to wait, because you're willing to go through whatever God is asking you to go through, God is going to give you more. So expect more. Whatever you ask God for, expect even more than that. Because he's so pleased with what you've done that he's given you way more than you even thought. You didn't even ask for what you're going to receive from God. And this is the key part that I almost forgot. He's doing it quickly. It's going to happen when you don't expect it. Why? I was shocked when that guy came out because I wasn't expecting him to come that soon. So know that God is saying the posture in which you The posture in which you wait determines how long you'll be waiting for, and it's going to happen sooner than you expect if you wait in the correct posture. All right, so I hope that you guys receive something from this word, and I just pray that you guys meditate on what it truly means to wait with patience and ask the Lord to help you to be patient, to help you to be in the right posture during your waiting season for whatever thing that you might be waiting for. So I pray you all have a blessed day. Bye.
And the children shall lead them. Thank you, family, for joining me tonight. With that being said, I want to pray our prayer of protection until we meet again. I'm going to check with the son to see what other evening she can pop in this week. It'll be somewhere between Monday and Thursday when I bring that live to you, because I've got a retreat, a spiritual retreat this weekend, Friday through Sunday. So yes, I will check in with her, and then I will naturally promote the broadcast. I know many of you are not getting your notifications, so I will share once I create the broadcast to go live, and then I'll share the day of, like right before I go live, to get more of you to participate. For the part 2 and the last portion of this particular series and the delineation roundtable with the Sun and Unity for Our Community in the X space, we'll finish up that this week, sometime between Monday and Thursday. I'll keep you posted. With that being said, family, the light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us, and the presence of God watches over us. Wherever Black American Negro descendants and our allies are, God truly is, because you are the face of God. Yes, you are, family. You are the voice of God. You are the body temple of the Spirit of the living God. And with that being said, family, I want you to make it a beautiful, God-inspired rest of your evening until we meet again. And in the meantime and in between time, I'm believing for each and every one of us a ton of peace, love, and reparations, family. I love y'all. Negro descendants, peace, family. Thank you.